I welcome you all to this high-level policy dialogue on accelerating SDG-6 through multi-stakeholder partnerships, organized by India Water Foundation in collaboration with United Nations Environment Programme and supported by World Water Council and the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific of United Nations in the premises of prestigious 7th India Water Week, organized by Ministry of Jal Shakti of the Government of India. It's a pleasure to have you all here. The Sustainable Development Agenda aims to transform the world, eradicate poverty, and achieve sustainable development by 2030 worldwide, ensuring that no one is left behind. Yet, as Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, said, to deliver on the promise of a prosperous and peaceful future, development actors will have to find a new way of working together and leveraging genuine partnerships that make the most of expertise, technology, and resources for sustainable and inclusive growth. This comprehensive and boldest agenda for humanity cannot be realized without increased and effective cooperation of all stakeholders at all levels. The importance of partnerships is recognized within the Sustainable Development Goals and the SDG-17, strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnerships for sustainable development. They acknowledges multi-stakeholder partnerships as major drivers of the SDGs. According to the World Bank, we are around US $114 billion short of achieving the UN SDG 6 on water. More precisely, that means US 114 billion per year from now until 2030. Some of the most important challenges around world include lack of access to clean sources and proper sanitation, efficient wastewater treatment, as well as building resilience mechanism against floods and droughts. All of these are further exacerbated by climate change, increasing extreme weather events. The answer, as always, is proper management and partnerships. To initiate this session, I request our President, Dr. Arvind Kumar, first to present the mementos to Honorable Minister of Jal Shakti, Shri Shekhawat ji, and welcome him. I would like to inform all of you that the paintings that we are presenting are made by the children of government schools and aspirational districts of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Now I would request Shri Atul Bagai ji to present the memento to Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Shri Kailash Chaudhary ji. Now I again request Dr. Kumar to present the memento to Deputy Head UNESCAPE SSWA Office, Shri Sudesh Ratna ji. I again request Dr. Kumar to present a memento to Shri Atul Bagai ji. I will now request the dignitaries on the dais for the launch of 3 publications. First publication is India at 75 and Beyond, authored by Dr. Arvind Kumar to commemorate the milestone 75th Independence Year of India. This publication has perspective from policymakers, ministers, bureaucrats, influencers, and experts to analyze the achievement of India in last 75 years, especially in the last decade, while looking forward to the goals we must now achieve in the coming decade and in Amrit Kal. The second publication is on ecosystem-based adaptation approaches to sustainable management of aquatic resources, again authored by Dr. Arvind Kumar and published by Elsevier London and peer-reviewed by 2 international universities. This book presents a close examination of the role of ecosystem-based adaptation in managing river basins, aquifers, floodplains, and their vegetation to provide water storage and flood regulation. The third publication is the report made by India Water Foundation in collaboration with NGS Engineers India Limited for Japan International Cooperation Agency. India Water Foundation and NGS undertook a survey on water supply and sanitation in urban slums of Delhi. The survey team reviewed central and state government policies and programs, projects of JICA funded projects like Yamuna Action Plan of Delhi 123, Odisha Integrated Sanitation Improvement Project 1 and 2, and Hussain Sagar Lake and Catchment Area Improvement Project. I would request if representatives from JICA India office are there to please come on the stage. Mr. MP Singh, Ms. Harisa Watanbe. No, they are not there. Thank you all of you for I'll now call upon Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Shri Kailash Chaudhary ji, to please give his address. Because of paucity of time, he has to leave. So, Shri Chaudhary ji, please.
आज इस कार्यक्रम में हमारे मध्य उपस्थित हमारे आदरणीय जल शक्ति मंत्री माननीय श्री गजेंद्र सिंह जी शेखावत साहब और हमारे मध्य उपस्थित है आदरणीय रंजन रत्ना जी, अतुल बगई जी, आदरणीय श्री अरविंद कुमार जी और सभी उपस्थित भाइयों और बहनों। आज निश्चित रूप से जैसा कि हम सब देख रहे हैं कि ये कार्यक्रम 2 दिन से चल रहा है और जल के विषय पर हम सब चिंतित हैं। महामहिम राष्ट्रपति महोदय जी ने जिस तरह से इसका उद्घाटन किया और उसके बाद में लगातार हम सभी ये चिंता कर रहे हैं कि आने वाले कल में हमारे देश में ही नहीं पूरे विश्व के अंदर जल का जो संकट बनने जा रहा है उसका हम समाधान कैसे निकालें, क्योंकि जल है तो कल है, ये हम सब भली भांति जानते हैं। और जल की जो बात अगर जब हम करते हैं तो देखा जाए तो ये भी किसी भविष्यवेता ने कहा है कि चौथा विश्व युद्ध अगर होगा तो वो जल के लिए होगा। और ऐसी परिस्थिति के अंदर हम सबको ये मिलकर रास्ता निकालना है कि हम जल का संरक्षण कैसे करें और आने वाले वक्त के अंदर हम अपने पूरे विश्व के अंदर ये जो बड़ी समस्या है उसका समाधान कैसे निकालें। आज मानव जीवन के अंदर सबसे ज्यादा अगर जरूरत रहती है तो हमारे को पानी की आवश्यकता होती है। हमें प्रतिदिन पानी की आवश्यकता रहती है और वायु है, जल है, अग्नि है, सबको आवश्यकता अलग अलग की रहती है, लेकिन पानी की आवश्यकता हमें सबसे ज्यादा रहती है। और उसमें भी सबसे ज्यादा पानी का अगर उपयोग कहीं हो रहा है तो वो कृषि के अंदर हो रहा है। खेती के अंदर सबसे ज्यादा पानी की आवश्यकता पूरे विश्व में रहती है और हिंदुस्तान में भी हमारे सबसे ज्यादा पानी की आवश्यकता खेती के अंदर ही महसूस की जाती है। और उसको लेकर लगातार विभिन्न समय के अंदर सरकारों ने प्रयास किया है कि पानी की पूर्ति हो और पानी की समस्या है तो उसका समाधान भी हो, और आने वाले वक्त के अंदर हम इस दिशा में क्या ऐसा करें कि हमारे पानी के संकट से भी निजात मिले और एग्रीकल्चर के प्रोडक्ट के अंदर भी, उत्पादन में भी वृद्धि हो। तो ये सारी दिशा के अंदर सरकारों ने जो काम किया है, और लगातार जो पिछले प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी प्रधानमंत्री बने उसके बाद में इस पर बहुत ज्यादा काम हुआ है। और आज देखा जाए तो जैसा कि आज का कार्यक्रम का मूल हेतु यही है, जल से संबंधित ही विषय है। और पूरे अगर देश के अंदर देखा जाए तो अगर जल की बात करें तो आज लगभग विश्व के अंदर जो भौगोलिक क्षेत्रफल है उसमें 328 मिलियन हेक्टेयर जो भूमि है वो यहाँ पर हिंदुस्तान के अंदर है, और जो विश्व की लगभग 2.45% भूमि है। और इसके साथ ही वहां पर अगर पानी की बात करें तो पानी विश्व का 4% पानी हिंदुस्तान के अंदर है, और आबादी 18% है। और इसके साथ ही अगर यहाँ पर हम देखा जाए तो जो उत्पादन है वो 328 मिलियन जो उत्पादन जो मिलियन हेक्टर सेक्टर के अंदर होता है, इसमें 70% है वो जो जमीन है वो सिंचित क्षेत्र, 50% लैंड है वो सिंचित क्षेत्र के अंदर आती है। और इसमें 2016 से लेकर अब तक जो काम किया गया है उसके अंदर भारत सरकार के द्वारा जो इरिगेशन के ऊपर और जिस तरह से काम किया, और उसमें 17 लाख हेक्टेयर भूमि है जिसके अंदर माइक्रो इरिगेशन पे काम किया गया। और तो माइक्रो इरिगेशन ही इससे पानी के जल को हम बचाया जा सकता है, क्योंकि खेती के अंदर हम सब देखते हैं कि पानी का एक समय ऐसा था कि जब हम फ्लड इरिगेशन से खेती करते थे, और फ्लड इरिगेशन में इतना पानी का उपयोग होता था कि फ्लड इरिगेशन से पानी जितनी आवश्यकता होनी चाहिए उससे अधिक पानी की फसल को आवश्यकता से अधिक फसल के अंदर पानी होता था। और उसकी वजह से कई तरह की, जिस तरह से जो फसल जितना उत्पादन होता था उससे भी कई बार उसमें प्रॉब्लम आती थी। लेकिन जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने इस काम को आगे बढ़ाया और उसके बाद में इस विषय पर कई माइक्रो इरिगेशन के ऊपर काम किया गया, और साथ ही इसके लिए एक काम और हमें सबको करने की भविष्य में भी आवश्यकता रहेगी कि हमारे किसानों को नई टेक्नोलॉजी भी दी जा रही है। नई टेक्नोलॉजी के माध्यम से अगर खेती करते हैं तो ड्रिप सिस्टम है उसमें स्प्रिंकलर से भी खेती करते हैं। और आज इस बात पर भी बल दिया जा रहा है कि सरकार के द्वारा कि हमारे किसान है वो प्रेसिशन एग्रीकल्चर पर जाए, और पॉली हाउस है, ग्रीन हाउस है, उसके अंदर खेती करते हैं तो उससे जल का संरक्षण निश्चित रूप से होता है। हम सब देख रहे हैं कि प्रेसिशन एग्रीकल्चर हो चाहे मल्चिंग हो, मल्चिंग के माध्यम से भी किसानों ने इस तरह से, मैं पूरे देश के अंदर इसके लिए सरकार की तरफ से सपोर्ट भी किया जा रहा है, और सरकार की ओर से सब्सिडी का भी प्रावधान किया गया है। अगर ड्रिप सिस्टम से अगर वो खेती करता है, पॉली हाउस या ग्रीन हाउस से खेती करता है तो उसमें सब्सिडी का प्रावधान किया गया है। लगभग 50% तक की सब्सिडी किसानों को अवेलेबल करवाई जा रही है, तो जिससे कि किसान अपनी फसल को पानी के लिए वहां पर जितना आवश्यकता है उससे अधिक पानी की आवश्यकता से अधिक उसको ना मिले, तो उससे हम जल को बचा सकते हैं। और भारत सरकार का ये सतत प्रयास है, और जैसा कि संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ के तत्वाधान में जो एसडीजी के लक्ष्यों को पूरा करना हमारा सबका लक्ष्य है कि 2030 तक हम इस लक्ष्य को पूरा करें, तो इस दिशा में कृषि मंत्रालय भी अपना काम कर रहा है। वहीं पर जल संरक्षण, जल शक्ति मंत्रालय भी लगातार इस दिशा में काम कर रहा है कि जल शक्ति मंत्रालय के द्वारा भी राष्ट्रीय और जल संरक्षण की योजना बनाकर किस तरह से व्यक्तिगत पानी को बचाया जा सके, राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर हम पानी को कैसे बचा सकें। इसी तरह से अन्य विभागों के द्वारा भी, जैसा कि ग्रामीण विकास मंत्रालय के द्वारा भी प्रयास किया जा रहा है कि ग्रामीण विकास मंत्रालय के अंदर भी वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग के माध्यम से गांवों के अंदर जो पानी बह जाया करता था वो पानी एक खेत से दूसरे खेत से होते हुए नदी में चला जाता था जिसका उपयोग नहीं होता था। तो इसलिए हर मेड़ पर पेड़ लगे, इस दिशा में भी काम किया गया और मेड़बंदी के माध्यम से किसान का खेत का पानी खेत में कैसे रहे, तो खेत का पानी खेत में रखने के लिए भी सरकार की ओर से ये लगातार प्रयास है कि किसान को इसके लिए गाइड किया जाए, उनको ट्रेनिंग दी जाए और इसको लेकर हमारे जो साइंटिस्ट हैं वो भी प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारे विभिन्न संस्थाएं हैं जितनी भी, आज हमारे चाहे आईसीआर हैं, आईसीआर के द्वारा इतनी ये नई टेक्नोलॉजी किसान तक पहुंचाई जाए और भारतीय कृषि अनुसंधान परिषद लगातार जैसा कि देख रहे हैं उनके विभिन्न संगठन जितने भी अनुसंधान जो संस्थान है जहां पर इंस्टीट्यूट है, उन इंस्टीट्यूटों के द्वारा भी इस बात के ऊपर बल दिया जा रहा है कि जल को संरक्षित करना है, फसल की इल्ड भी हमें बढ़ानी है और इसके लिए साइंटिस्टों ने लगातार प्रयास करके और कई वेराइटियां भी निकाली है जो पॉल्यूशन को भी बचाने वाली होगी और जिसमें पर्यावरण के अनुकूल फसल हो और उसमें यील्ड भी अधिक हो। और जिस तरह से आज मैं कह सकता हूं कि ऐसी क्लाइमेट रेजिलेंट वेराइटियां हैं, वो 1951 वेराइटियां आईसीआर ने पिछले 5 साल 8 साल के अंदर निकाली है और ये वेराइटी है जिसके अंदर एक तो उत्पादन में वृद्धि होती है, पानी की भी उसमें आवश्यकता कम होती है। तो पानी की खपत कम कैसे हो, अभी आपको मैं एक उदाहरण के तौर पर कहना चाहूंगा कि पानी के अंदर, चावल के अंदर हम देखते हैं जिस तरह से राइस का उत्पादन होता है, राइस में पानी की इतनी आवश्यकता होती है कि उसकी अगर देखा जाए तो 1 किलो चावल पैदा करने के लिए, राइस पैदा करने के लिए कम से कम तो भी 2-3 हजार से लेकर 5 हजार लीटर पानी चाहिए 1 किलो चावल पैदा करने के लिए। तो इसके लिए सरकार, आईसीआर के द्वारा सरकार की तरफ से यह प्रयास हुआ कि ऐसी वैरायटी निकाली जाए जिससे कि कम पानी की आवश्यकता हो और ऐसी वैरायटियां, चावल का मैंने एक उदाहरण दिया है कि चावल की ऐसी गेहूं के अंदर भी वैरायटियां निकाली है, ऐसी लगभग हमने 1951 वैरायटियां निकाली हमारे साइंटिस्टों के प्रयास से आईसीआर और जो जिस तरह से मेहनत की है। तो वो वैरायटियां एक तो कम समय की होती है जिसमें कि पानी की कम समय के अंदर किसान की फसल पक जाए और उसके साथ ही कम समय के अंदर फसल पके, पानी की आवश्यकता भी कम और कम पानी के अंदर 2-3 या 1-2 पानी के अंदर ही वो फसल तैयार हो जाए। इस दिशा के अंदर सरकार ने बहुत प्रयास करके और कई वेराइटियां तैयार की है और इसके साथ ही क्लाइमेट रेजिलेंट वेराइटी तो निकाली, लेकिन हमें इस चीज की भी आवश्यकता है कि डाइवर्सिफिकेशन पर भी जाना पड़ेगा और डाइवर्सिफिकेशन के ऊपर भी सरकार की तरफ से लगातार प्रयास करके कई ऐसे काम किए गए हैं कि जिसमें जिसकी वजह से आज डाइवर्सिफिकेशन पे जहां गेहूं और चावल अधिक हो रहा है, पानी का उपयोग ज्यादा हो रहा है, जैसा कि हरियाणा है, पंजाब है या यहाँ पर जिस तरह से देखा जाए तो दिल्ली के आसपास में तो पानी का उपयोग अधिक हो रहा है। तो इसके लिए डाइवर्सिफिकेशन के लिए सरकार की तरफ से उनको सपोर्ट के तौर पर भी सहयोग किया जा रहा है। आरकेवीवाई योजना है, उसके तहत राज्यों को ये सपोर्ट प्रदान किया जाता है कि आप आरकेवीवाई योजना के तहत कोई भी अगर वहां पर अपना प्रोजेक्ट सबमिट करते हैं तो उनको भारत सरकार की ओर से भी ये सपोर्ट करके कि आरकेवीवाई योजना के अंदर हम पानी को कैसे बचाएं, ड्रिप सिस्टम और अन्य जिस तरह से उसके अंदर किया जाता है। तो मुझे लगता है कि इसी का ये परिणाम रहा कि आज उत्पादन में भी वृद्धि हुई है। अगर लगातार में देखा जाए तो पिछले 7 साल के अंदर लगभग जो उत्पादन है उसमें भी वृद्धि हुई है। आज 315 मिलियन टन है उत्पादन देश के अंदर हुआ है, जो लगभग 251 मिलियन टन था, जहां से बढ़कर 315 मिलियन टन हुआ है। ऐसा ही हॉर्टिकल्चर के अंदर भी 250 मिलियन टन था, जो बढ़कर 342 मिलियन टन पर जो उत्पादन हॉर्टिकल्चर के अंदर भी बढ़ा है। और अगर बात करें वृद्धि की तो भारत की आजादी के बाद में लगातार अगर खाद्यान्न की दृष्टि से भी देश के अंदर 6 गुना वृद्धि हुई है और बागवानी के अंदर, हॉर्टिकल्चर के अंदर भी 11 गुना वृद्धि की गई है। ऐसे ही मछली पालन या फिशरीज के अंदर भी 20% की 20 गुना वृद्धि की गई है और इसी तरह से दूध के अंदर भी 11 गुना वृद्धि हुई है और इस तरह से अगर दूसरे भी उत्पादों के अंदर वृद्धि हुई है। तो कुल मिलाकर ये जो वृद्धि हुई है उसमें फसल के अंदर भी और सब के अंदर कुल मिलाकर उद्देश्य यही है कि सरकार की तरफ से ये प्रयास भारत सरकार के लगातार रहे हैं कि हमारे किसानों को कम पानी के अंदर अधिक अधिक उत्पादन वाली फसल मिले, ताकि जल का जो संकट हमारे सामने आने जा रहा है और उसका हम समाधान कर सकें। आपको मैं ये जरूर कहना चाहूंगा कि आज ये पर्यावरण की भी बात हम सब कर रहे हैं, इसी समय में जल की भी बात करें, पर्यावरण की बात करें, तो आज जैसा कि दिल्ली के आसपास की भी बात करें तो पर्यावरण की दृष्टि से कि हमें पराली जिस तरह से किसान जलाते हैं, तो उससे भी जो पराली जलाते हैं तो उससे जो किसानों को नुकसान भी होता है, पर्यावरण भी प्रदूषित होता है, और उसकी समाधान के लिए सरकार ने 1100 करोड़ रुपए का प्रावधान करके और राज्यों को सपोर्ट किया है। तो उसके अंदर जो ऐसे आज दिल्ली के आसपास जैसा पंजाब है, हरियाणा, दिल्ली और उत्तर प्रदेश के जो क्षेत्र है, वहां पर उनको सपोर्ट करके कि हमारे पर्यावरण को हम कैसे उसको संरक्षित करें, और ऐसी टेक्नोलॉजी लाकर कि उसके अंदर हम जैसा कि पूछा डीकंपोजर का भी उपयोग किया जा रहा है, और इसके साथ ही नई नई टेक्नोलॉजी की मशीनें हैं, वो भी लगभग 3 लाख 2.5 लाख मशीनें किसानों तक पहुंचाई, ताकि हमें पर्यावरण की दृष्टि से हमें पर्यावरण भी बचाना है और जल का संरक्षण भी हम सबको मिलकर करना है। तो जल संरक्षण की दृष्टि से मुझे लगता है कि निश्चित रूप से सरकार की ओर से जो काम किए जा रहे हैं उसमें किसान की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका होती है। और कृषि के अंदर मुझे जहां तक कहना है कि कृषि आज देश के अंदर जितना उत्पादन हो रहा है उसमें पानी है, तो पानी का जैसा आने वाले वक्त के अंदर हमारी नई टेक्नोलॉजी जितनी भी आज प्रेसिशन एग्रीकल्चर का मैंने आपको जैसा बताया है, प्रेसिशन एग्रीकल्चर के अंदर हमारा वही पानी सर्कुलेट होता रहता है, और उसमें एरोपोनिक्स है, हाइड्रोपोनिक्स है, जिसके अंदर जहां पानी हमारे को अगर 100 लीटर पानी की आवश्यकता होती है, तो उस जगह पर सिर्फ 10% पानी, यानी कि 100 की जगह पर 10 या 15 लीटर पानी के अंदर हम उस फसल को और अच्छे तरीके से और उससे भी ज्यादा इल्ड ले सकते हैं। तो इस तरह से प्रेसिशन एग्रीकल्चर है, या हमारी हाइड्रोपोनिक्स है, एरोपोनिक्स की खेती है, उसके ऊपर भी सरकार की तरफ से पूर्ण रूप से प्रयास करके कि हमारे देश के किसानों को नई टेक्नोलॉजी भी उपलब्ध हो जाए। और जहां तक मैं बात करना चाहूंगा कि टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करें, तो अब किसानों के पास में जैसा कि ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी भी पहुंची है, ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी के माध्यम से किसान है वो खेती करना इस हिंदुस्तान में प्रारंभ हुआ है। तो ये सारी चीजें इसीलिए की जा रही है कि हमारे आने वाले समय के अंदर जो सबसे बड़ा हमारा संकट की बात यहाँ पर आज जो यहाँ पर चर्चा की जा रही है, और आगे पूरा इस सप्ताह के अंदर पूरे विश्व के अंदर चिंता कर रहे हैं, तो इसको लेकर एग्रीकल्चर की बड़ी भूमिका होती है। और कृषि के अंदर मैं सोचता हूं कि इस तरह से अगर हम सरकार के जो प्रयास है, भारत सरकार के जो प्रयास हैं, जिसमें बूंद बूंद सिस्टम है, जिसके अंदर हम किसान को उसमें सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उसका एक जो क्षेत्रफल है उसके अंदर भी लगातार वृद्धि हुई है, और क्षेत्रफल है जो बढ़कर लगभग आज उसको कह सकते हैं कि लाखों हेक्टर के अंदर इसको बढ़ाया गया है। लगभग 10 लाख हेक्टर है जो क्षेत्रफल नया है, जिसके अंदर हमने ये जो ड्रिप सिस्टम के ऊपर पिछले 7-8 साल के अंदर गए। तो ये निश्चित रूप से मैं कह सकता हूं कि इस दिशा के अंदर हम काम करेंगे तो देश के नहीं पूरे विश्व के अंदर हम पानी के संकट से उबर पाएंगे, और जल का जो संकट है उसका समाधान इसी रास्ते इस समय मैं सोचता हूं कि किसानों के लिए सबसे पहले आवश्यकता है कि उसको पानी की कैसे व्यवस्था हो, और पानी भी पहुंचे, और पानी पहुंच के साथ उसको कम पानी का उपयोग कैसे हो, इस दिशा के अंदर जल शक्ति मंत्रालय और निश्चित रूप से पूरा प्रयास कर रहा है कि हर खेत तक पानी पहुंचे। ये सरकार की स्कीम के तहत हर घर पानी पहुंचे, हर घर पर पानी पहुंचे, हर खेत में पानी पहुंचे। तो इस तरह से मुझे लगता है कि कृषि मंत्रालय और जल शक्ति मंत्रालय मिलकर और ग्रामीण विकास मंत्रालय के प्रयासों से इस देश के अंदर ये प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं कि हमारे किसानों को भी हम व्यवस्थित पानी पहुंचा सकें, और उसके साथ ही कम पानी के अंदर खेती हम कैसे कर सकें, और इसके साथ ही हर जगह पर पानी पहुंच हो, इस दिशा के अंदर सरकार के प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि आने वाला वक्त जो हम चिंतित कर रहे हैं इसकी समाधान की ओर अवश्य बढ़ेंगे। और आदरणीय जल शक्ति मंत्री गजेंद्र सिंह जी के हमेशा प्रयास रहते हैं, पूरे देश के अंदर जल शक्ति मंत्रालय के द्वारा जो प्रयास किए गए उनकी जितनी तारीफ जितनी सराहना की जाए वास्तव में कम है, क्योंकि आज पानी व्यक्ति की आवश्यकता है, जिस तरह से खेत के अंदर भी आवश्यकता है वैसे ही व्यक्ति की आवश्यकता है। आज इस दिशा में हमें क्या करना चाहिए, पानी को एक एक बूंद को हमें बचाना है। आज पहले हम सब जानते हैं कि पानी का उपयोग अगर नहाने के लिए भी उपयोग करते थे तो इतना पानी उपयोग करते थे, बहुत कम पानी हमारा उपयोग होता था। लेकिन वर्तमान में हम देखते हैं कि नहाने के लिए पानी जितना नल के अंदर आता है उससे जितनी आवश्यकता से अधिक उपयोग किया जा रहा है। इसके लिए हम जन जागरण कैसे कर सकते हैं, और मैं जिस क्षेत्र से आता हूं सबसे ज्यादा पानी की महत्ता का वही समझ सकते हैं, और गजेंद्र सिंह जी भाई साहब का भी वही क्षेत्र है जोधपुर, और जो पश्चिमी राजस्थान है वहां से ज्यादा मैं सोचता हूं कि पानी के महत्ता को कोई नहीं समझ सकता। और पानी हमारे वहां पर एक बाल्टी पानी से तो हम पानी पूरा नहा लिया करते थे, लेकिन वर्तमान में देखते हैं कि दूसरी जगह जिस तरह से अंधाधुंध उपयोग किया जा रहा है, तो हमें पानी को भी बचाना है, पानी की महत्ता को बचाना है। और जिस तरह से आने वाले समय के अंदर हम कृषि के अंदर भारत सरकार के जो प्रयास हो रहे हैं वो निश्चित रूप से नीचे तक पहुंच रहे हैं, और उसके लिए जितने भी प्रयास होंगे उसके लिए नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार है वो निश्चित रूप से दृढ़ संकल्पित है। और जो अपेक्षा की गई है भारत सरकार की ओर से और एसडीजी के माध्यम से जो कि हम आने वाले वक्त के अंदर अपने पानी को बचाएं, तो जो पानी के बचाने की दिशा के अंदर सरकार के लगातार प्रयास है, और हम निश्चित रूप से समय रहते हम इसको सफलतापूर्वक करेंगे। और भारत सरकार के लगातार प्रयास आने वाले कल में जो पानी की समस्या को निजात दिलाने के अंदर और कृषि के अंदर पानी को कम करने के लिए नई टेक्नोलॉजी को नीचे तक पहुंचाने के प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं। तो मैं आप सबको इस समय धन्यवाद देता हूं कि आप सभी यहाँ पर उपस्थित होकर और कृषि के विषय पर बैठ करके किसानों के लिए पानी की कैसे अब उसको समाधान कर सकते हैं, कैसे हम पानी की समस्या का समाधान कर सकते हैं भविष्य के अंदर, तो इसके लिए आप सभी उपस्थित हुए। तो मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूं, और मुझे याद किया इसके लिए भी मैं आपको पूरे मंत्रालय को धन्यवाद देता हूं, और जल शक्ति मंत्रालय के द्वारा जो ये कार्यक्रम का आयोजन किया गया है तो इसके लिए मैं बहुत बहुत मंत्री जी को भी धन्यवाद देता हूं। बहुत बहुत आभार। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
थैंक यू श्री कैलाश चौधरी जी। आपके इस वक्तव्य ने हम सबको बता दिया है कि पानी और कृषि का कितना गहरा संबंध है। Now our next speaker is Dr. Arvind Kumar, President India Water Foundation and Governor World Water Council, to set up the tone for this session. Dr. Arvind Kumar is a strategist and key influencer in development sector with more than 26 years of experience. He is an author, columnist, water activist, and specializes in concepts like ecosystem-based adaptation, water energy food nexus, with specific emphasis on transversal approach of interlinkages between water, environment, and SDGs. He has published over 450 plus research articles and is a PhD in defense studies. Dr. Arvind Kumar, please.
Thank you. Respected Sri Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji, Honorable Minister of Jal Shakti, Sri Kailash Chaudhary ji, Honorable Minister of State for Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, Sri Atul Bagai ji, UNEP India Head, Sri Ranjan Ratna ji, Deputy Head UNESCAP, South and Southwest Asia Office, Mr. Mark Smith, DG IMI, and Mr. Louis Fayez, President of World Water Council, who has joined us virtually. Dignities and the galaxy of experts and colleagues gracing the occasion here, also who have joined us virtually, a very good afternoon to all of you. I welcome you all to this high-level policy dialogue. Admittingly, India Water Foundation is a small organization. Nevertheless, it is engaged in enhancing public awareness about sustainable development goal and major component of Paris Agreement on climate change in the Asia Pacific region in general and India in particular. It is also emphasizes on the familiarizing the people regarding the vital role water, energy, environment play in human lives, their impact on health, economic growth, livelihoods of the people, and the calamities that wreak havoc due to non-judicious harshening of these natural resources. Today, we all assembled here to deliberate on the subject of gold SDG 6, which is a foundation of life and livelihoods, is a key of sustainable development. Successful implementation of the SDG goal as a whole will serve as a foundation of the achievement of most of the 17 sustainable development goals. Irrespective of the fact that water is a major driving force behind most of the SDGs, it is fast becoming a pressing societal and geopolitical issue. Goal 6 is a gateway to fulfill the objectives, which entail the potential of bridging the gaps between the social, economic, and environmental pillars of water security, peace, development, and good natural resource governance. In the wake of the prevalent state of affairs, corrective measures can still be taken to avoid the crisis from further worsening. There is an increasingly awareness that our freshwater resources are limited and need to be protected both in terms of quantity and quality. This water challenge affects not only the water community but also decision makers and every human being. That is the primary objective behind organizing this policy dialogue. The potential benefit of the collaborative actions can be act as an accelerator for larger regional collaboration, economic integration, and even conflict avoidance. Honorable Shekhawat ji here, and he will speak on the status of current scenario of SDG in India, Minister future perspective, etc. Even Kailash ji also stressed light on various issues on undeniable linkages of Goal 6, which agriculture and other agencies shall present their perspective. Honorable Minister hails from Rajasthan, a desert state that taught the world how to have access to in scarcity, and who better understand the value of water, and perhaps that may be the reason for his performance exceedingly well in such a short span. We have collaborated with organizations like UNEP, World Water Council, FAO, Convention on Wetlands, World Bank, UN Global Compact Network of India, International Water Management Institute, Global Alliance for Sustainable Planet, and garnered support from the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Department of Science Technology, uh, and UNESCO to come together, deliberate on this crucial subject. The founding mantra of India Water Foundation was cooperation, coordination, convergence by sensitizing, incentivizing, and galvanizing. But we also leveraging on the 5P approach of Prime Minister Modi ji, as rightly mentioned by your good self yesterday, Honorable Mr. Sir. Every department agency has its own set of challenges and strength. All the experts later speaking in the panel discussion will present their policy perspective and highlight achievements. This session can be a milestone for states and the delegation in assimilating strategies for actor-sector synergies. I'm thankful to the UNESCAP South and South West Asia office for giving me an opportunity for preparing a SDG progress report on 9 South and Southwest Asia countries. We noted the disparities in the progress in SDG-6. Learning from this policy dialogue shall be instrumental in understanding nuanced perspectives on how these uh, disparities can be addressed. Why partnerships are imperative for achieving SDG, and more for the SDG, we have tried to bring multi-agencies on this platform to understand best practices, policy recommendations, success stories, implementation updates. We shall prepare a well-documented report of this event. DG sir is here, and recommendation with you. So we all witnessing the sustainable endeavor of the Ministry of Jal Shakti, like the execution of the initiative Har Ghar Jal, which is being implemented at a mammoth scale through a partnership of empowering village samitis, panchayats at the grassroots level. I also mentioned the same in my book, India at 75 and Beyond as well, how India has taken tremendous strides in water sector in last 8 years. Undoubtedly, government and agencies like UNEP, WHO, UNICEF, and other have a strong commitment to the SDGs. But it is the people's participation that make all the difference. Engagement with partners organizations is vital for a tangible result on the ground, and it is not just a top-down, but also a bottom-up approach by sensitizing, incentivizing, galvanizing stakeholders. We have to bring the communities, social society, and state agency together for integrated multi-stakeholder partnership through cooperation, coordination, convergence. With all these tremendous effort, I hope will agree with me that a little more nudge is needed to adopting a circularity uh, wise approach, illicit cooperation to encourage efficiency, support treatment technologies equally paramount is protecting and restoring water-related ecosystems such as forest, mountain, wetlands, rivers. The Water Division of Department of Science and Technology is doing very good work on this. We have taken various projects with them on outreach and technology and thankful for their support. In Meghalaya, there was a limitation in terms of environmental financing, institutional convergence, and lack of integration of horizontal and vertical development sectors. I witnessed that to bring visible impact. All the grassroots took nearly 10 years to succeed, and that would only happen with inadequate institutional framework, integrated water policy, community participation, and ownership. Very important thing. Similarly, we are drafting an integrated, customized water policy for Madhya Pradesh as well. What I have witnessed in more than 2.5 decades as a journalist and civil society activist in the sector, I strongly feel that the development agenda should be inclusive with the equal weightage to CSOs, business, government organization, and it is essential to engage stakeholder comprehensive actions from the perspective of SDG, climate, and biodiversity. SDG-6 connects policy areas, economic sector, societies, and it is a tool for cooperation and for building trust. It is a catalyst of facilitator and support strategy to tackle effectively climate change and facilitate hassle-free adaptation. Therefore, it is a imperative that actors across sector must systematically integrate water resources management into their climate adaptation mitigation strategies. My latest book of ecosystem-based adaptation approaches on the sustainable management of aquatic resources delve into the same. This is a need to go beyond the concept of integrated water resource management, IWRM, which is a vertical approach, but by adopting a transversal approach, fundamentally interlinking vertical and horizontal linkage of SDG-6, exploring the water, energy, climate change nexus, and ecosystem-based adaptation for localizing and strengthening SDGs. Proper policy framework and institutional arrangement is imperative, which cannot be achieved without commitment to good governance. Our Honorable Prime Minister has given a SDG-6 accelerator in this country by taking lead on water conservation, sanitation, recycling, and sustainable consumption through public participation. I heartily appreciate his Amrit Sarovar initiative, creating 75 Amrit Sarovars in East 6, which directly address the water security of water as a resource. His life initiative on responsible consumption and bringing lifestyle change by promoting an environment-friendly lifestyle is an imperative build on partnership at all levels. I strongly feel that at this critical juncture, there is a dire need to emphasize interministerial, intersectoral synergy, accelerating SDG-6 for making not just India, but this region water secure. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for setting up the tone of the event. Now I call upon Mr. Atul Bagai, Head of the United Nations Environment Programme in India. Mr. Atul Bagai will walk us through on why UN and especially UNEP emphasizes on partnerships for achieving 2030 agenda. Shri Bagai joined UN Environment's Ozone Action Programme under the Montreal Protocol as the Regional Officer for South Asia in 2000 and served as Senior Regional Coordinator to build the capacity of sub-regional networks in Asia and enable them to meet the compliance targets under the Montreal Protocol. Prior to working at UN Environment, he worked with the Government of India for 17 years in a number of senior positions. Mr. Atul Bagai, please.
माननीय मंत्री जी वाटर रिसोर्सेज, माननीय मंत्री जी कृषि विभाग, कृषि मंत्रालय, मेरे मित्र अरविंद जी, मेरे कलीग यूएन से राजन, जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी साहब, सत्यप्रिया जी वर्ल्ड बैंक से, हमारे अन्य पार्टनर्स, मैं सबसे पहले तो इंडिया वाटर फाउंडेशन को धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा कि उन्होंने यूएनईपी को ये मौका दिया इस कार्यक्रम में सहभागिता करने के लिए और इस बड़े नेक काम के लिए जो हम सबके लिए एक बहुत ही आवश्यक, अत्यंत आवश्यक चैलेंज और पूरा करने के लिए एक उद्देश्य हम लोगों के सामने एक लक्ष्य है। मैं ज़्यादा समय नहीं लूँगा पर 2-3 चीज़ों पे ज़रूर मूलभूत चीज़ों पे कहना चाहूँगा और माननीय कृषि मंत्री जी ने बहुत ही सटीक प्रश्न हम लोगों के सामने रखे हैं कृषि के क्षेत्र से और ना केवल कृषि के क्षेत्र से, इस बात की हम लोगों को प्रशंसा करनी चाहिए जब भारत का कृषि मंत्री पर्यावरण की बात करता है। ये एक दर्शाता है कि हमारा देश जो है वो सही रास्ते पे चल रहा है और ना केवल कृषि का मंत्री परंतु जल आपूर्ति का मंत्री भी पर्यावरण के बारे में जब बात करता है और कृषि विभाग के मंत्री के साथ डायस में बैठता है, इसका एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण संकेत दुनिया को जाता है कि भारत में जो नीति पर्यावरण की तरफ है वो एक मल्टी सेक्टोरल नीति है। वो हर विभाग को इकट्ठा करके जो पार्टनरशिप की बात हो रही है, जो आज के संवाद का विषय है, जो पार्टनरशिप की बात हो रही है, ये पार्टनरशिप यहीं से शुरू होती है और अगर ये सुदृढ़ पार्टनरशिप मंत्रालयों के बीच में है तो इसका बड़ा अच्छा प्रभाव ग्राउंड पर भी जाएगा जहां पर हम लोग सब काम कर रहे हैं। हम अक्सर देखते हैं जल के बारे में जो बात चलती है, मुझे याद है जब हम बचपन में 50 साल पहले स्कूल में पढ़ते थे तो खेल के जब शाम को घर आते थे और मैं शहरी क्षेत्र की बात कर रहा हूँ, अभी मैं ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में नहीं जा रहा हूँ, तो घर आते थे तो सीधा नल खोल के हम पानी पी लेते थे। हमको ये नहीं होता था कि आरओ लगा हुआ है, फिल्टर लगा हुआ है या कुछ लगा है, पानी इतना स्वच्छ नल में आता था कि हम नल से पानी पी लेते थे। मैं हाल में 3 महीने एक पर्सनल इमरजेंसी से जर्मनी में था, मैं पिछले 2-3 हफ्ते पहले ही लौटा हूँ और सबसे आश्चर्यजनक बात मुझको ये लगी जब मैं जर्मनी में लैंड किया कि वहाँ नल से हर आदमी जो है नल खोल के पानी पी रहा। आज के दिन में हम भारत में क्या किसी भी डेवलपिंग कंट्री में क्या सीधा नल से खोल के पानी पी सकते हैं? नहीं। इसका क्या कारण है? क्योंकि हमने जितना प्रदूषण फैलाया है, जितनी अपनी धार्मिक, जिनको हम धार्मिक नदियां कहते हैं और हमारे महासागर, जितना प्रदूषण हमने इन क्षेत्रों में डाला है लैंड बेस्ड यूज से, उससे हमारा जल जो प्रदूषित हुआ है उसका कारण है कि हम आज अपने शहरों में, अपने गांव में हम जल की आपूर्ति, निश्चल जल की आपूर्ति नहीं कर पाते और ये एक बहुत ही बड़ा ह्यूमन राइट है। जिस हम लोगों का एक ह्यूमन राइट है कि हमको जल आपूर्ति होनी चाहिए जो स्वच्छ हो, जिसको पी के हमें कोई शारीरिक अभाव ना हो, कोई हेल्थ इशू ना हो और इसकी आपूर्ति करने के लिए मैं बड़ा आभारी हूँ भारत सरकार का भी कि कई ऐसे क्षेत्रों में इन्होंने कार्यक्रम शुरू किए हैं कि न केवल जैसे माननीय मंत्री जी ने कहा कि प्रत्येक घर में जल आपूर्ति की जाएगी, ये लक्ष्य है सरकार का, पर न केवल जल आपूर्ति की जाएगी पर शुद्ध जल की आपूर्ति की जाए, इसके बारे में भी हमारे को अपने सामने एक गोल जो है अपने सामने रखना चाहिए। जल के साथ इतना खिलवाड़ जो हम लोगों ने किया है उसका कारण 3 कारण है और जिसको हम यूएन की भाषा में ट्रिपल प्लैनेटरी क्राइसिस की बात करते हैं, क्राइसिस ऑफ नेचर, क्राइसिस ऑफ क्लाइमेट और क्राइसिस ऑफ पोल्यूशन। बायोडाइवर्सिटी के क्षेत्र में, पोल्यूशन के क्षेत्र में और क्लाइमेट के क्षेत्र में जो इस समय क्राइसिस पूरे मुल्क में और पूरे वर्ल्ड में हो रहा है उसका सीधा कुप्रभाव जो है जल के ऊपर पड़ रहा है। तो जैसे माननीय मंत्री जी ने कहा जल है तो कल है, बिल्कुल, मतलब अगर जल, और कहा कि चौथा विश्व युद्ध अगर हुआ तो जल के क्षेत्र में होगा और जल के कारण होगा, ये बिल्कुल सही 16 आने सही बात है। इस समय जिस तरह जल के ऊपर विवाद हो सकते हैं, जल के आपूर्ति में जिस तरह का विषम परिस्थितियां आई हुई हैं, तो हम लोगों को सबको एक पार्टनरशिप के रूप में, ये सिर्फ माननीय शेखावत जी के मंत्रालय का काम नहीं है कि वो सिर्फ वही काम इनका क्षेत्र है तो ये करें, ये सारे मंत्रालयों को, सारी मल्टीलेटरल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में, वर्ल्ड बैंक हमारे यहाँ पर है, यूएनएसकैप है, यूनेप है, कई और संस्थाएं हैं, इंडिया वाटर फाउंडेशन है, इमी है, इन सबको एक पार्टनरशिप के रूप में इकट्ठे होकर SDG-6 को पूरा करना है 2030 तक, और इस समय हमारे पास ज़्यादा नहीं है। मैं अंत में बस एक काम बोलना चाहूँगा कि हमारे देश में माननीय मंत्री जी, अतिथि देवो भव कहा जाता है कि अतिथि देवता के अनुसार है, और मैं तो कहूँगा एक चीज़ और हमको आपको नारा लेके जाना कि प्रकृति देवो भव, प्रकृति जो है वो देवता के समान है, और जब आम आदमी प्रकृति को, जल को एक देवता की तरह देखेगा तो वो उसके संरक्षण के लिए प्रयासरत रहेगा। और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो 20 अक्टूबर को एक लाइव कार्यक्रम का उद्घाटन किया है सेक्रेटरी जनरल UN के साथ, एक ऐसा सटीक कार्यक्रम है जिसमें जल के ऊपर विशेष ध्यान देने की ज़रूरत है, और प्रत्येक भारतीय की, प्रत्येक नागरिक की पूरे वर्ल्ड में ये एक ड्यूटी है कि जल के संरक्षण के लिए वो प्रयासरत रहे, तभी लाइफ फॉर एनवायरनमेंट का जो नारा प्रधानमंत्री जी ने दिया है वो पूरा हो सकेगा। मैं फिर से इंडिया वाटर फाउंडेशन अरविंद भाई को आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि इन्होंने हमें मौका दिया। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Shri Atul Bagai, for your balanced and accurate context setting. Now I request Mr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna to highlight how UNESCAPE envisages partnerships in the region, especially the very fragile, geopolitically fragile South and Southwest Asia region. Rajan Sudesh Ratna is working as Deputy Head of South and Southwest Asia Office of UNESCAPE in New Delhi since August 2018, and leading research, policy, advisory, and capacity building on helping countries accelerate progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. He is leading a project on capacity building of women entrepreneurs from micro, small, and medium enterprises from SSWA for using digital marketing and e-commerce platforms for promoting their businesses and becoming part of national, regional, and global supply chains. He's he's an MPhil in Environmental Sciences from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, a PhD in Economics from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, and done Executive Program on Trade Policy and Negotiations from Harvard University, Boston. Thank you, Mr. Ratna. Please come over and your address.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Honorable Ministers, Mr. Shekhawat, Mr. Chaudhary, my colleague, Mr. Bagai, Arvindji, and colleagues from World Bank and officials, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. Indeed, it has been a pleasure to me to join Atulji in thanking India Water Foundation for organizing this event and giving UNESCAP this opportunity to be the partner. It is our privilege because with India Water Foundation, with UNEP and the Government of India, we have been working over the years, and the office in Delhi is around 11 years old. Just as what has been introduced, it's a regional office which looks into South and Southwest Asia. So it's not only India, but we also look into a very mixture blended countries, which starts from Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, and India. So you can see unity in diversity is there in this region, and all the challenges which you can think in a particular region which can emerge, or even in a country, is available in this part of the world. This topic is very relevant, and I would like to join Atul in saying that most of the time when people think about sustainable development goals, there is a, a, a back of the mind, it comes that, okay, this is a UN resolution, so it is the responsibility of UN to fulfill these goals. To a certain extent, there are people who also think this is a responsibility of the countries and they have to meet the sustainable development goals. Some who know really realize that this is a goal which has been taken collectively by all the countries of the world, part of a UN system, which decided after a long negotiation in 2015 that in another 15 years, if the planet need to survive, these goals are important. We have already covered almost 7 years, so we are in the middle, and we are far, far behind all the goals at a global level and also in South Asia. The challenge of South Asia and India is that if India and South Asia do not achieve the sustainable development goals, the world will not be able to achieve, because a majority of the population, 1/3 of the population is here, and half of the poor people of the world live in this region. And therefore, having this kind of a partnership is very, very important. And there, the role of government, civil society, think tanks like Water Foundation, UN agencies like UNSCAP, and other international organizations like my colleagues from World Bank and other international organizations who are present here becomes all the more important. Multi-stakeholder partnership is also one of the goals which has been there as SDG 17, which is a means of implementation, which talks about South-South partnership, North-South partnership, triangular partnership. And it is important and it is recognized that without partnership, the countries will not be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal. Coming to SDG-6, SCAP looks into Asia and Pacific. So all the countries, which are 62 countries in Asia Pacific, are regressing in Goal 6. None of them are at the target of SDG Goal 6. And South Asia's progress is way behind in SDG 6 compared to Asia and Pacific. So there is a lot which is required to be done. If you go at a country level, and I'm not going to do that technical in the opening one, because there is a technical presentation also to be made by me. But just to share at this time, because honorable ministers are here, multi-stakeholder partnership, learning, exchange of knowledge is important not only for a country like India, but also country like India, which historically was the knowledge hub for the world, can also become a knowledge hub now by sharing its experiences. There are many successful schemes which the government of India has implemented, which have done a good progress, like Jal Shakti Abhiyan, building toilets and making open defecation completely free from India is one of the biggest challenge which India has achieved. And the target has been achieved because of the not only the government of India initiative, but it put the push, but it was an equal partnership with every person in the society bringing this change. And in South Asia, there are other countries who are suffering. And this is an opportunity not only for India to fulfill the targets of SDG within the India, but also become a knowledge hub. And this has been demonstrated by the COVID diplomacy. When the whole world was suffering from COVID, India started supplying vaccines and medicines and other things. It has the potential. It can do it. If one goes and looks into the individual goals, there are individual targets where countries are lagging behind, including India, and there is much to be done. But again, as Honorable Minister Atul and Arvind ji said, this is a topic, if we look only in terms of SDG 6, then we will not be in a position to fulfill this goal. There is also a connectivity. Clean water also requires a clean environment. It also needs to have a clean habitat. it also requires a clean living. What we do, Atul was talking about pani hum kal se pee lete the. I also know, I mean, even in the rural area, I belong to a rural place in India. The villages were more clean than cities, and still now I have seen the villages to be more clean. Here, we bring all the kuda of the home and dump it at the ground in front of the door without thinking about what is going to happen to our neighbor. And if there is a 2-day strike, and you can see still when you're walking on the roads and streets of Delhi, how the waste and the garbage is spread on the road. There is a lot to be done. It impacts not only air, but it also impacts water, groundwater, underground water. Indian life evolves around water. So I agree when Atul said, Prakriti Devo Bhava, Jal Dev. Jal Dev is India, Varun is Dev of Jal. He's already God. We have already established. Somehow we got disconnected with it. That is a need which require again to have the partnership and create awareness and sharing of knowledge. On our side, we organize multi-stakeholder partnership, and we are also doing at a regional level of Southwest Asia, where we bring the good practices of one country and share those with the other countries so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I will be talking more in terms of on those issues in my technical presentation, but for the time being, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ratna. I would now request Shri Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji, Union Minister of Jal Shakti of the Government of India, to share his thoughts with us. Shri Shekhawat ji, as a Member of Parliament representing Jodhpur and having won the Indian General Elections 2019 with a margin of 270,000 votes, Mr. Shekhawat is seen as a member of the Youth Brigade, a symbol of a farmer who's progressive and a technocrat. The reason why he has been exclusively handpicked by the PM with the responsibility to align policy objectives with dynamic optimism and work ethics. As a Minister for Jal Shakti, he has been given the Herculean responsibility and opportunity of reversing the water scenario of the country, the task of taking India from being water scarce to water secure. He is now leading the crusade to bring water to 14 crore households through the Prime Minister's ambitious Jal Jeevan mission. The scheme, also called as Har Ghar Nal Se Jal, and is an opportunity to solve the household water distress in large swaths across India's topography. Armed with a clinical understanding of the bevy of problems that plague the particular water sector, he is expected to accomplish the promise of Jal Jeevan Mission by 2024. Known for his exemplary ambiguous nature and grounded personality, Mr. Shekhawat is a philosopher by education and a farmer by profession. He led an internship program that leveraged his cult following on Quora of 70,000 followers to create a nationwide youth-led development initiative. Something that impressed the PM because of its unique approach towards problem solving for public policy issues and challenges. I request Sir to please come forward and share his thought process on the progress made by India on SDG-6.
मुझे लगता है इसका शायद ही कोई फर्क पड़ता होगा या कोई संदर्भ होता होगा कि व्यक्ति चुनाव में 2 वोट से जीता था या 2,75,000 वोट से जीता था, और कम से कम ऐसे टेक्निकल फोरम में जहां सब लोग इतनी तकनीकी दक्षता और प्रवीणता रखते हैं। मुझे नहीं लगता कि जो पिछले 3 साल से भारत को अगर समझता होगा, काम करता होगा, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल से किसी तरह से जुड़ा होगा, वो भारत के जल शक्ति मंत्री किस पृष्ठभूमि से आता है उसका शायद उसने अध्ययन नहीं किया होगा। इस औपचारिकता की कहीं आवश्यकता नहीं थी, लेकिन क्योंकि बहन जी को जो दायित्व दिया गया था इन्होंने पूरा किया, मैं इनका अभिनंदन करता हूँ। 7th एडिशन ऑफ इंडिया वाटर वीक के दूसरे दिन आज इस महत्वपूर्ण हाई लेवल पॉलिसी डायलॉग में, जहां हम एक्सेलरेटिंग SDG 6 थ्रू मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप्स इस विषय पर चर्चा करने के लिए विषय के विशेषज्ञों के साथ में एकत्रित हुए हैं। ऐसे महत्वपूर्ण सेशन में हम सब के बीच में उपस्थित मेरे मित्र, मेरे छोटे भाई, राजस्थान में मेरे पड़ोस की लोकसभा के से संसद में प्रतिनिधित्व करने वाले भारत सरकार के ऊर्जावान कृषि राज्य मंत्री श्री कैलाश चौधरी जी, मंच पर उपस्थित हेड ऑफ यूनाइटेड नेशंस एनवायरनमेंट कंट्री ऑफिस श्री अतुल बगई जी, श्री राजन रत्ना जी रिप्रेजेंटिंग ESCAP, और मंच पर उपस्थित आज के इस महत्वपूर्ण कार्यक्रम के सूत्रधार इंडिया वाटर फाउंडेशन के अध्यक्ष श्री अरविंद कुमार जी, कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित विभिन्न ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का प्रतिनिधित्व करने वाले और SDG डेवलपमेंट गोल्स को प्राप्त करने की दिशा में भारत ने जो यशस्वी सफलता विश्व के पटल पर प्राप्त की है, उसके सूत्रधार, उसके रचनाकार, उसके शिल्पकार, सभी स्टेक होल्डर्स जो यहाँ उपस्थित हैं, उन सभी संस्थाओं के प्रतिनिधिगण, मैं अपनी बात कहने से पहले आप सबका अभिनंदन करना चाहता हूं, आप सबका सम्मान व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं। भारत की जनता, भारत के 130 करोड़ लोगों की तरफ से आपका अभिनंदन करना चाहता हूं। आपके स्वागत के साथ साथ में जो आज का विषय, जो महत्वपूर्ण विषय जिस पर चर्चा के लिए हम सब लोग एकत्रित आए हैं, और जिन टेक्निकल सेशंस जो इसके बाद में और होने वाले हैं, जहां विस्तार से इन विषयों पर चर्चा होगी, क्योंकि इस विषय पर चर्चा के इस सत्र में जब मैं पास बैठे हुए, जब अतुल जी अपने विषय पर बात कर रहे थे, पानी की चर्चा इन्होंने की, किस तरह से सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स और स्पेशली उसके लिए मल्टी सेक्टरल अप्रोच की जरूरत है, और उन्होंने भारत में जिस तरह से माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में हम होल ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच के साथ में काम कर रहे हैं, उन विषयों का जब उल्लेख किया, आदरणीय कैलाश जी ने विस्तार से पानी की उपलब्धता, खेती के में पानी के अधिकतम उपयोग और पानी की अधिकतम उत्पादकता के सामने खड़ी चुनौतियां और भारत सरकार के द्वारा उस दिशा में किए गए प्रयासों के बारे में जब चर्चा हो रही थी, तो मैंने धीरे से अरविंद जी से पूछा, मुझे लगता है कि हम एक्सेलरेटिंग SDG 6 थ्रू मल्टी सेक्टरल पार्टनरशिप इस सब्जेक्ट से थोड़ा सा कहीं स्लिप हो गए, कि किस तरह से हम जो है, जो यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स जो डिसाइड किया है, पहले MDGs हुआ करते थे, MDGs की सफलता के प्राप्त में या सफलता या पूर्ति के बाद में, रादर मैं कहूँ सफल कितना हुए, ये अगेन इट कैन बी अ डिबेटेबल इश्यू, बट उसके बाद में 2015 में नॉन ऑब्लिगेटरी होते हुए भी दुनिया के सारे देशों ने एक साथ बैठ करके इसके ऊपर चर्चा की, और एक कमिटमेंट विश्व भर के लगभग सभी देशों ने एक साथ मिलकर के लिया कि हम 2030 तक विश्व को डेवलपमेंट की दृष्टि से सस्टेनेबल बने, और सभी लोग समानता के स्तर पर लगभग एक बेसिक जो है रिक्वायरमेंट्स के लिए समानता के स्तर तक पहुंचे। इस दिशा में जब एक महत्वपूर्ण निर्णय यूनाइटेड नेशंस के प्लेटफॉर्म पर हुआ, मुझे लगता है कि उस दिन जो भारत का आधारभूत सिद्धांत है वसुधैव कुटुंबकम का, वो सिद्धांत यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने अपरोक्ष रूप से जो है उस सिद्धांत के साथ में विश्व ने और विश्व की सभी संस्थाओं ने, सभी देशों ने सहमति व्यक्त की थी। भारत का दर्शन सभी समानता के साथ में आगे बढ़े और सबको एक समान ग्रोथ करने का अवसर मिले, जो कुछ जो है डेवलपमेंट की दौड़ में पीछे रह गए, उन सबको भी उस दिशा में एक बार बराबरी पर आने का मौका मिले, ये सबकी जिम्मेदारी है। इस भाव को भारत में पारिवारिक भाव ऐसा कहा गया, और परिवार में सब लोग समान स्तर तक पहुंचे या कम से कम एक बेसिक मिनिमम स्तर तक सभी लोग पहुंच पाए, इसकी जिम्मेदारी पूरे परिवार की है। विश्व में ने इस भारतीय विज्ञान दर्शन को पहली बार महसूस भी किया और उस दृष्टिकोण से उस दिशा में काम भी प्रारंभ हुआ है। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स को अर्जित करने के लिए के विषय में जिस तरह से भारत में प्रगति हुई उसके बारे में मैं चर्चा करूं उससे पहले हम सब लोग बहुधा सरकार में काम करते हुए कन्वर्जेंस की बात करते हैं कि सरकार की विभिन्न स्कीम, सरकार की विभिन्न योजनाओं, सरकार के विभिन्न अपॉर्चुनिटीज, सरकार के विभिन्न जो है फाइनेंशियल अपॉर्चुनिटी, विंडो ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज, उन सबको एक साथ कन्वर्ज करके किसी लक्ष्य को अधिक आसानी के साथ में प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। लेकिन किसी भी ऐसे बड़े लक्ष्य और चुनौती को प्राप्त करने के को हासिल करने के लिए या सफलता के साथ में उस चुनौती को पार पाने के लिए जितना कन्वर्जेंस की महत्ता है उससे भी ज्यादा महत्ता इंटीग्रेशन और कोलैबोरेशन और पॉसिबल पार्टनर्स जो है वो सब आज पूरा विश्व स्वीकार करता है। क्योंकि विकास के इस दौड़ में आज विश्व में जो स्तरों का डिफरेंस देशों के बीच में हो गया है, रिसोर्सेज की अवेलेबिलिटी को दृष्टि से भी जितना डिफरेंसेस विभिन्न देशों के बीच में हो गया है, टेक्नोलॉजीज और टेक्निकल नो हाउ की दृष्टिकोण से भी जितने डिफरेंसेस उस सब के बीच में हो गए, यूनाइटेड नेशंस ने एसडीजी गोल 6 की डिसाइड करते समय और उसके बाद में उसकी इंप्लीमेंटेशन स्ट्रेटेजी पे बात करते हुए, अगर मैं गलत नहीं हूं तो जोहान्सबर्ग 21 में यह तय किया था, अगर मैं गलत हूं तो मुझे अतुल जी करेक्ट करेंगे, जोहान्सबर्ग 21 में यह तय किया गया था कि इसकी जब इंप्लीमेंटेशन स्ट्रेटेजी बनी थी तब उसके लिए मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर्स पार्टनरशिप के लिए एक प्लेटफॉर्म अलग से डिसाइड किया गया था और जहां इस बात की कल्पना की गई थी कि दुनिया के ऐसे देश जिनको जिसकी आवश्यकता है उस आवश्यकता की आपूर्ति के लिए सभी लोग साथ मिलकर के हाथ बढ़ाएं और इस तरह से बढ़े हुए हाथ सब लोग साथ मिलकर के एक लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने के लिए आगे बढ़ेंगे तो निश्चित रूप से पूरा विश्व इन गोल्स को ज्यादा आसानी के साथ में प्राप्त कर सकेगा। अगर इसके दूसरे परिदृश्य को मैं देखूं, जिन विषयों पर हम क्योंकि एसडीजी 6 पर आज बात कर रहे हैं, एसडीजी 6 के जो दो मुख्य विषय थे, एक सैनिटेशन फॉर ऑल और एक ड्रिंकिंग वाटर कवरेज एक्सेस टू ऑल, वाटर सिक्योरिटी एंड सैनिटेशन अवेलेबिलिटी, इन दो विषयों पर एसडीजी 6 में चर्चा की गई थी। मुझे स्मरण आता है 2015 में मैं 2014 के चुनाव में पहली बार सांसद बनकर के आया था और 2015 के समय में जब एसडीजीज पर चर्चा हो रही थी तो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने मुझे यूनाइटेड नेशंस में भारत का प्रतिनिधित्व करने का एक अवसर प्रदान किया था। सैनिटेशन पर चर्चा हो रही थी दुनिया भर में, जैसा अभी अतुल जी ने कहा कि अतुल जी ने कहा कि 50% से ज्यादा गरीब भारत में है, आपने ये कहा कि दुनिया के जो है ऐसे एसडीजी गोल्स जिन लोगों को करना है, ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री की बात आपने की कि उसमें अधिकांश कंट्रीब्यूटर भारत में थे। जब उन विषयों पर वहां बातचीत हो रही थी, मैं भारत का प्लेकार्ड लगे हुए उस टेबल के पीछे बैठा था। दुनिया भर के देश जब आंकड़ों की चर्चा कर रहे थे और ऐसा अनुमान किया जा रहा था कि 100 करोड़ लोग दुनिया में खुले में शौच के लिए आज भी अभिशप्त हैं और 2030 तक इस लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करना, ऐसा विचार उस समय में किया जा रहा था, या मैं ठीक से इसे कहूं तो 2030 तक का समय दिया जाना चाहिए या उससे भी और अधिक समय की आवश्यकता पड़ेगी। लुकिंग टुवर्ड्स द चैलेंजेस एंड द प्रिपेयर्डनेस ऑफ द स्टेट्स एंड द कंट्रीज विच were compelled for open defecation, और उसमें सिंस इंडिया वाज द लार्जेस्ट कंट्रीब्यूटर, 100 करोड़ लोग जो ऐसे अनुमानित किए गए थे उसमें से 60 करोड़ लोग भारत में थे। और जो इस समय जिस तरह हम मंच पर बैठे हैं, उस समय जो मंच पर बैठे थे वो लोग जिस तरह से भारत की तरफ इंगित करके और चर्चा कर रहे थे, तो मेरे मन में इस तरह का भाव आ रहा था कि शायद दुनिया हमें एक अपराधी के दृष्टिकोण से देख रही। मेरे मन में भी यह दर्द था कि 70-72 साल देश को आजाद हुए हो गए, लेकिन आज भी हम इतनी सामान्य सी जो है आवश्यकता की आपूर्ति आज नहीं कर पाए और दुनिया हमें आज उसके कारण से फिंगर पॉइंट आउट करके हमारी तरफ और हमारी तरफ हमको देख रही है। लेकिन परिदृश्य बदला। 2014 में जब माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इस बात की चर्चा की थी, वहां उसका उल्लेख भी जब मुझे बात करने का अवसर मिला था, तब मैंने कहा था कि आपने जो 2030 तक का विंडो की बात कर रहे हैं, भारत ने अपने लिए बहुत एम्बिशियस टारगेट लिया, हम 2019 तक इसे पूरा करेंगे। और जिस तरह से प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इसको फ्रंट से आकर के लीड किया, कोई कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था कि देश का प्रधानमंत्री खुद हाथ में झाड़ू लेकर के, हाथ में करनी तगारी और जो है मसाला लेकर के, ईंट हाथ में लेकर के शौचालय बनाता हुआ दिखाई देगा। कोई इस बात की कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था कि भारत का प्रधानमंत्री, जिससे बहुत बड़ी बड़ी चीजों की अपेक्षाएं, वो भारत का प्रधानमंत्री खुद हाथ में झाड़ू लेकर के स्वच्छता का महत्व समझाता हुआ दिखाई देगा। कोई आज इस बात की कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था कि भारत का प्रधानमंत्री खुद वीकली बेसिस पर इस लक्ष्य को अचीव करने के लिए मॉनिटरिंग करेगा। और शायद इससे भी आगे बढ़कर के देश में कोई इस बात की कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था कि भारत का प्रधानमंत्री ट्विन पिट टॉयलेट में से ट्विन सोक पिट्स में से जो टॉयलेट के सोक पिट है, उस सोक पिट को खाली करता हुआ, हाथ में जो है फावड़ा लेकर के उस सोक पिट को खाली करता हुआ भी पूरा देश और दुनिया देखेगी। और शायद कोई इस बात की कल्पना नहीं कर सकता था कि कुंभ में के मेले में उस स्वच्छता का महत्व स्थापित करने के लिए वो स्वच्छताग्राहियों के पांव धोते हुए दिखाई देगा। जब इस तरह से भारत के प्रधानमंत्री ने फ्रंट पर आकर के लीड किया, तब दुनिया भर की सारी संस्थाएं जुड़ी, वो एक तरफ थी। लेकिन जब हम मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर के विषय में बात करते हैं, तो भारत बीइंग ए फेडरल कंट्री, हमारे स्टेट्स देवर आल्सो पार्टनर्स एंड देवर आल्सो स्टेक होल्डर्स। हमारी जो है रूरल डेवलपमेंट और पीआरआई की संस्थाएं और इंस्टीट्यूशन, वो अपने आप में एक जो है वो स्टेक होल्डर और पार्टनर थी। प्रधानमंत्री जी के इस व्यक्तिगत प्रेरणा के चलते देश के सारे मुख्यमंत्री साथ जुटे, देश की सारी सरकारें साथ जुटी, देश के चुने हुए जनप्रतिनिधि साथ जुटे, देश के सारे अधिकारी साथ जुटे, देश के सारे ब्यूरोक्रेट साथ जुटे, देश के सारे इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट और देश के सारे कॉरपोरेट साथ जुटे, देश के स्कूल में पढ़ाने वाले टीचर से लेकर के घर में काम करने वाली महिलाओं से लेकर के, और देश के स्कूल के पढ़ने वाले छोटे छोटे बच्चे जो उस बिहेवियरल चेंज के प्रोग्राम के लिए विसल ब्लोअर की तरह काम कर रहे थे। मुझे लगता है कि दुनिया में इससे श्रेष्ठ उदाहरण कोई नहीं हो सकता जो मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप का एग्जाम्पल हो। और उसी के कारण से जो दुनिया ने हमसे अपेक्षा की थी कि हम 2030 तक उस लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करें, हमने सफलता के साथ और सुगमता के साथ 2019 में इतनी बड़ी चुनौती को पूरा भी किया। और न केवल पूरा किया, अपितु विश्व को SDG-6 गोल को अचीव करने की दिशा में एक नई गति, एक नई ऊर्जा, एक नई शक्ति, एक नई ताकत प्रदान की। और ठीक उसी तरह से जब हमने ये लक्ष्य हासिल किया, उसके बाद में मुझे 2 अक्टूबर 2019 को माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के श्रीमुख से गांधी जी की 150वीं जयंती पर गांधीनगर में देश ने अपने आप को माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के श्रीमुख से खुले में शौच से मुक्त ऐसा घोषित किया था। हालांकि यह अलग विषय है कि जिस दिन यह कार्यक्रम हो रहा था, तब मैं इस विभाग का मंत्री का दायित्व मेरे पास में था। और हम ये अपेक्षा करते थे कि प्रधानमंत्री जी, हमने इतना बड़ा सक्सेस स्टोरी लिखा है, प्रधानमंत्री जी आज निश्चित ही हमारे लिए कुछ अभिनंदन के 2 शब्द कहेंगे। लेकिन मुझे याद आता है वो आइकॉनिक स्पीच, उन्होंने कहा कि ये हमारे लिए कोई लक्ष्य नहीं था, ये एक पायदान मात्र थी, हम यहां से उठकर के संपूर्ण स्वच्छता की तरफ जाएंगे। ये सस्टेनेबिलिटी आफ्टर द अचीवमेंट के लिए पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा प्रेरक विषय था। और इस घटना के ठीक बाद में 2 अक्टूबर के कुछ ही दिन बाद में मुझे स्टॉकहोम वाटर वीक में भारत का प्रतिनिधित्व करने का अवसर मिला था। मैं बहुत सारे ऐसे चेहरों को वहां आइडेंटिफाई कर सकता था जो 2015 में मेरी तरफ उंगली सामने करके देख रहे थे। और जब मैंने उस दिन विश्व के पटल पर यह बात कही कि हमारे देश ने वो लक्ष्य, जो लक्ष्य 2030 तक हासिल करने की चुनौती थी, उसको 2019 तक 11 साल पहले हासिल किया है, मैं दुनिया के उन देश, लगभग 100 से ज्यादा देशों के प्रतिनिधियों के आंखों में भारत के लिए सम्मान और आंखों में उनकी चमक देख सकता था। और मेरे लिए शायद मेरे जीवन का सबसे जो है खुशी का और गर्व का पल वो था जब मैं आकर के उस हमारा जो भारत का गंगा का पवेलियन वहां लगा हुआ था, नमामि गंगे मिशन का, उस पवेलियन में जब आकर के बैठा और दुनिया के कम से कम 40 देशों के प्रतिनिधि, और वो ऐसे देश जो प्रगति की दौड़ में भारत के पीछे खड़े, उन 40 देशों के प्रतिनिधियों ने जब आकर के मुझे यह कहा कि इंडिया इंस्पायर्स अस, भारत हमें प्रेरित करता है, मार्गदर्शन देता है, क्योंकि हमारे लिए दुनिया के ऐसे अफ्रीका के देश, ऐसे पिछड़े हुए देश जो विकास की दौड़ में पिछड़े हुए देश हैं, वो एक मानते हैं कि हमारे लिए दुनिया के दूसरे देश जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं, अमेरिका, जर्मनी, फ्रांस, यूरोपियन कंट्रीज, ये सब लोग हमारे लिए जो है रोल मॉडल नहीं हो सकते। हमारे लिए रोल मॉडल अगर दुनिया में कोई है तो भारत है, और अगर भारत अचीव कर सकता है तो हम भी कर सकते हैं, और हमें भारत से इसमें सहयोग और हैंड होल्डिंग की आवश्यकता है। मेरे लिए इससे प्रसन्नता का अवसर कोई नहीं हो सकता था। इसलिए मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप्स के साथ में जिस तरह से हमने काम किया, और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो इस काम को शुरू करते समय जो पहले 4 पीस का प्रिंसिपल उन्होंने दिया था कि कितनी भी बड़ा लक्ष्य हो, कितनी भी बड़ी चुनौती हो, कितनी भी बड़ी समस्या हो, अगर प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ 4P, कल मैंने उद्घाटन के अवसर पर भी उस बारे में चर्चा की थी, पॉलिटिकल विल हो, जो प्राथमिक आवश्यकता है कि सरकार और नेतृत्व यह तय करे कि हमें इस लक्ष्य को हासिल करना है, और उस लक्ष्य को हासिल करने के लिए सरकार फ्री फ्लो ऑफ पब्लिक इन्वेस्टमेंट सुनिश्चित करे। और उसके बाद में जो तीसरी महत्वपूर्ण चीज थी वो थी पार्टनरशिप, जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 2014 में एनविसाज किया कि हम दूसरे इस क्षेत्र में सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स के साथ में पार्टनरशिप करें। सैनिटेशन के क्षेत्र में काम करने वाला शायद दुनिया का कोई ऐसा संस्थान नहीं होगा जो ऑर्गेनाइज रूप में इसको ऐसे विषयों पर इसके समाधान के लिए काम करने वाला जो भारत के उस समय में उस साथ नहीं जुटा होगा। किसी न किसी रूप में कहीं ना कहीं कोई ना कोई संस्थान भारत में भारत के उस चुनौतीपूर्ण लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने के उस प्रयाण में, उस महाप्रयाण में हमारे साथ में खड़ा था। हमने सबको साथ में जोड़ करके काम किया था। जितने वॉलंटरी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होंगे वहां से लेकर के, जितने टेक्निकल प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं वहां से लेकर के, जितने जो है इकोनॉमिक को स्टडी करने वाले प्लेटफॉर्म्स है, वहां तक सब लोग इस विषय पर हमारे साथ मिलकर के कहीं ना कहीं किसी न किसी रूप में काम कर रहे थे। और जब हमने उस लक्ष्य को हासिल किया, यह अलग बात है कि अब हम उससे बहुत आगे निकल गए। दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा बिहेवियरल चेंज प्रोग्राम होने के साथ साथ में अब हम कंप्लीट सैनिटेशन की दिशा में भी आगे बढ़ करके हम 6 लाख गांवों में से 1,15,000 गांवों में आज ODF प्लस की स्टेटस के बेंचमार्क तक पहुंच चुके हैं। 20% ऑफ द कंट्रीज विलेजेस हम उस जो है अगले पायदान तक पहुंच चुके हैं। पूरी दुनिया के लिए निश्चित रूप से प्रेरणा का विषय होगा। लेकिन उसके अतिरिक्त जब मैं पानी के विषय में बात करूं, अभी अतुल जी जब अपनी बात कह रहे थे तब इन्होंने कहा कि पहले हम बचपन में नल से पानी पी लेते थे। आप नल से पीते थे अतुल जी? मैं जब छोटा था तब मैं और कैलाश जी गांव के तालाब में पानी पीते थे। उसी तालाब में गांव की भैंसें गायें सभी नहाती भी थी, अपने मलमूत्र का विसर्जन भी करती थी, सारी बकरियां उसी में बैठती थी, सब उसी से पानी पीती थी। मैं, मेरी भैंस और मेरी बकरी, हम तीनों साथ पानी पीते थे। लेकिन उसमें नल या पानी की शुद्धता की महत्ता नहीं थी, हमारे यहाँ की जो है परिपक्वता की महत्ता थी। आज अगर हम अपने घर में नल खोल करके पानी नहीं पी पा रहे हैं, हम आरओ पर डिपेंडेंट है, वो इसलिए है कि हमें अपनी व्यवस्थाओं पर से विश्वास उठ गया है और हमें अपने आप पर से विश्वास उठ गया। उसके कारण से आज हम अपने नल का पानी नहीं पी पाते और हम मजबूर हैं। और मैं मानता हूं उसमें कहीं ना कहीं सरकारों की निश्चित रूप से कमी होगी, क्योंकि हमारे यहां इस व्यवस्था पर विश्वास जमाने की दिशा में कभी प्रयास नहीं किया गया। आपने चर्चा की, इसलिए मैं संयोग से उस विषय में बात कर रहा हूं। आपने कहा कि हम जल की शुद्धता के बारे में भी बात करें। जब SDG-6 के दूसरे पायदान कि प्रत्येक व्यक्ति को पीने का पानी मिले, स्वच्छ पानी मिले, इसकी कल्पना माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 2019 में की और यह तय किया कि हम 19 करोड़ से ज्यादा ग्रामीण परिवारों को 5 साल के कालखंड में हर घर तक पीने का पानी देंगे। यह संकल्प तब तय किया। दैट टाइम इट वाज नॉट ए प्रोग्राम फॉर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर क्रिएशन और द पाइपलाइन लेइंग। इस प्रोग्राम के जो मूल सूत्र प्रधानमंत्री जी ने तय किए थे वो पहली थी, ये केवल नल लगाने का प्रोग्राम नहीं। अगर आप इसका जो इसका ध्येय वाक्य वो पढ़ेंगे, हर घर में नल और नल से जल, पानी पहुंचे और पानी शुद्ध पानी पहुंचे, उचित गुणवत्ता का पानी पहुंचे, उचित मात्रा में पानी पहुंचे और निरंतर पानी पहुंचे। ये नितांत तीनों आवश्यकताएं, और जब इन तीनों चीजों पर क्वालिफाई करेगा तभी उसे फंक्शनल हाउसहोल्ड टैप कनेक्शन ऐसा माना जाएगा। और शुद्धता के इस मानक को स्थापित करने के लिए कि पीने का पानी स्वच्छ मिले, इसको इंश्योर करने के लिए हमने फिर अगेन मैं कहूंगा कि हमने होल ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच से सीखा। जब कोविड की आपदा आई थी तब भारत में हम सब जानते हैं केवल एक नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ वायरोलॉजी की लैब थी जहां हम कोविड को टेस्ट कर सकते, केवल एक RT-PCR टेस्टिंग स्टेशन था भारत में। लेकिन वहां से मेल खड़े होकर के हमने दुनिया में सबसे तेजी से प्रगति करते हुए हजारों ऐसे टेस्टिंग सेंटर्स जो हैं वो स्थापित कर दिए। लेकिन उसके साथ साथ में हमने एक रचना की कि चाहे कहीं भी टेस्ट होगा, उस टेस्ट का रिपोर्टिंग जो है वो एक ही प्लेटफॉर्म से होगा। हमारा कोविन प्लेटफॉर्म से ही सारे टेस्ट की रिपोर्टिंग होती है। आप दुनिया देश में कहीं भी किसी भी कोने में जाकर के टेस्ट कराइए, अल्टीमेटली रिपोर्ट जो है, डेटा एक जगह जाता है, वहां से रिपोर्ट जनरेट होती है, आपको रिपोर्ट मिलती है। हमने उसी से सीखा और ये तय किया माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी की प्रेरणा से कि हम 2000 लेबोरेटरीज देश में पीने के पानी की बनाएंगे और सारी लेबोरेटरीज को हमने नेशनल एनएबीएल एक्रेडिटेड लेबोरेटरीज बने। इसको इंश्योर करने के लिए राज्य सरकारों को पैसा भी दिया, हैंड होल्डिंग भी दी, उनकी सहायता भी की। और जब ये सहायता की, आज 2000 लेबोरेटरीज का नेटवर्क स्थापित हो गया। क्योंकि यहां जितने लोग बैठे, यदि मैं उनसे ये प्रश्न करूं, क्योंकि हमारे जहन में ये है कि पीने का पानी हम सबके लिए अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण है, हमारे इट इज वेरी वेरी क्रिटिकल एंड एसेंशियल फॉर आवर लाइफ। बट फिर भी अगर मैं आपसे ये प्रश्न करूं दैट आपको अपने पीने के पानी की गुणवत्ता की जांच करवानी है कल सुबह, अगर मैं खून की जांच कराने की कहूंगा तो आप सबको शायद बिना कुछ सोचे समझे आपके मन में 10 अभी जगह याद आ जाएंगी कि आपके परिवेश में, आपके आसपास में कहां पानी की खून की जांच हो सकती है। आपको तुरंत नेट पर एक सर्च करेंगे तो एक नंबर भी मिल जाएगा जो जिसको कॉल करने के लिए, सैंपल लेने के लिए आपके घर कोई आने वाला है। अगर आपको अपना पीसी की स्पीड स्लो हो गई, उसको ठीक करना है, तो भी उसका समाधान भी आप अगले 1 सेकंड में खोज सकते हैं। लेकिन मैं ये कहूं कि आपको अपने पीने के पानी जो आपके जीवन के लिए इतना महत्वपूर्ण है, उसकी जांच करानी है, शायद आप इंटरनेट पे ढूंढ करके भी कई देर नहीं ढूंढ पाओगे। हमने 2000 लेबोरेटरीज का नेटवर्क बनाया। लेकिन मैं ये जानता था कि मेरे गांव में रहने वाली मां जो है, जो ये जानते हुए कि इस पानी की गुणवत्ता कॉम्प्रोमाइज है, इसमें हैवी मेटल्स हैं, इसमें आर्सेनिक है, इसमें फ्लोराइड है, वो शायद नाम नहीं जानती होगी, लेकिन इसमें प्रदूषण है और उसको पिलाने से मेरे बच्चे की या मेरे पति की, मेरे पिता की लाइफ इज गोइंग टू बी कॉम्प्रोमाइज फॉर होल ऑफ हिज लाइफ। लेकिन फिर भी वो पिलाने के लिए मजबूर थी। और वो अभी इतनी परिपक्व नहीं है कि वो गांव से आकर के कस्बे में या शहर में या जिला कार्यालय पर आकर के वो अपना टेस्ट कराएगी। हालांकि हमने जब तय किया तब उसके लिए देश भर में उसके बेंचमार्क्स तय किए। ये तय किया कि उसकी रिपोर्टिंग भी एक ही जगह से होगी ताकि पूरे भारत की रिपोजिटरी हमारे पास में रहे। और साथ ही साथ में यह भी तय किया कि उसकी फीस जो है वो इस पर्टिकुलर फीस ब्रैकेट से बाहर नहीं हो सकती। इतनी इस टेस्ट की इतनी ही फीस होगी, पूरे देश में यूनिफॉर्म फीस पॉलिसी है, उतना ही चार्ज किया जा सकता है। लेकिन गांव की महिला वो भी नहीं कर पाएगी। तब हमने ये तय किया, हमने अपने स्टार्टअप्स को लगा करके हैंडहेल्ड डिवाइसेस डेवलप किया। और बगई साहब, मैं खुशी के साथ में, गर्व के साथ में साझा करता हूं, मैंने 11 लाख महिलाओं को ट्रेन किया है देश के 6 लाख गांव में। और उन 11 लाख महिलाओं को हमने हैंडहेल्ड डिवाइसेस दिया है कि वो सप्ताह में एक बार, महीने में एक बार, हर बारिश के मौसम से पहले और बाद में अपने पीने के पानी की गुणवत्ता को टेस्ट करें। और बेसिक पैरामीटर्स पर टेस्ट करने के बाद में अब मैं इस तकनीकी पर काम कर रहा हूं कि वो जो रिपोर्ट हैंडहेल्ड डिवाइस से आती है उसको वो अपने स्मार्टफोन पर कैप्चर करे, तो वो भी मेरे जो मेरा नेशनल डिपॉजिटरी है उसमें जाकर के रजिस्टर हो, ताकि वहां अगर किसी तरह का भी कोई भी चुनौती है तो हम उसका समाधान हम तुरंत कर सकें। पीने के पानी की गुणवत्ता, जब हम सारे विषयों को साथ लेकर के काम करते हैं तब जाकर के इस तरह के एम्बिशियस टारगेट्स को हम पार कर पाते हैं। आज हम जिस तरह से पीने के पानी की उपलब्धता के लिए काम कर रहे हैं, मुझे बहुत प्रसन्नता है कि मैं जब हमने काम प्रारंभ किया था माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के उद्घोष के साथ में 15 अगस्त 2019 को, और उसके बाद जब, क्योंकि भारत बीइंग ए फेडरल कंट्री और वाटर बीइंग द स्टेट सब्जेक्ट, अलग अलग राज्यों की अलग अलग तरह की तैयारी थी, अलग अलग तरह की प्रिपेयर्डनेस थी, अलग अलग तरह की प्रायोरिटीज थी, अलग अलग तरह के जो है उनके वहां अवस्थाएं थी। और उनके चलते जो है हमारी ये मजबूरी थी कि हमको उन्हीं के माध्यम से काम करना था। मैं और कैलाश जी जिस क्षेत्र से आते हैं उस क्षेत्र की पानी की उपलब्धता को आप उत्तर प्रदेश से कहीं भी तुलना नहीं कर सकते थे। तो हमने राज्य सरकारों के साथ में बैठ करके पूरे देश भर में प्रवास करके 3 महीने के अंतराल में एक यूनिफॉर्म गाइडलाइन जो है वो बनाई और उसको माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने खुद लॉन्च किया 25 दिसंबर को सुशासन दिवस के दिन विज्ञान भवन से 2019 में। और 25 दिसंबर से लेकर के 25 मार्च में 3 महीने बाद में देश में लॉकडाउन हो गया था। और सब लोग ये मानते थे कि दिस मिशन इज गोइंग टू बी डीरेल्ड और डिलेड। बट मैं आज गर्व से ये बात कह सकता हूं, जो आंकड़ा जिस दिन हमने काम प्रारंभ किया था वो 16% या 3 करोड़ 23 लाख कनेक्शन था, वो आंकड़ा बढ़कर के आज 54% और 10 करोड़ 44 लाख कनेक्शन तक पहुंच गया। हम 7 करोड़ से ज्यादा माताओं बहनों को सुरक्षित पानी, स्वच्छ पानी, नियमित पानी देने में जो है वो सक्षम और समर्थ हुए हैं। मैं खुशी से कह सकता हूं कि गोवा 100% वाटर सैचुरेटेड स्टेट है, मैं जो है गुजरात 100% वाटर सैचुरेटेड स्टेट है, हरियाणा 100% है, तेलंगाना 100% है, अंडमान निकोबार तेलंगाना 100% है, और ऐसे बहुत सारी लंबी श्रृंखला है जो प्रदेश आज 90% से ऊपर के मुकाम तक पहुंच चुके हैं। और बहुत तेज गति के साथ में हम उस लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने की दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। लेकिन ये सब तभी संभव हो पाया जब हमारे सारे स्टेक होल्डर्स ने मिलकर के, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट के स्टेक होल्डर्स होंगे, चाहे वो मल्टी सेक्टरल से डिफरेंट सेक्टर्स के स्टेक होल्डर्स होंगे, चाहे नॉन गवर्नमेंटल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होंगे, और चाहे जो है दूसरे RDWS अदर सोसाइटीज होंगी, जो सोसाइटी में काम करने वाले दूसरे स्टेक होल्डर्स होंगे, सब लोग मिलकर के एक साथ खड़े हुए। सस्टेनेबल वाटर अवेलेबिलिटी की बात भी अभी की कैलाश जी ने चिंता व्यक्त की, जमीन का पानी कम है, निरंतर हम पानी का उपयोग अधिक उपयोग कर रहे हैं। ये समय की मांग और आवश्यकता है कि अब हमको पानी को कृषि के क्षेत्र में किस तरह से बचा सकते हैं, इसके ऊपर हमको मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप के साथ में काम करना पड़ेगा। मैं अरविंद जी को कहूंगा कि आपको आने वाले समय में आपको फोकस इस पे करना चाहिए, क्योंकि कैलाश जी के इरिगेशन में अगर 10% पानी बचेगा तो आने वाले 50 साल तक भारत वाटर सिक्योर रहेगा। पीने के पानी का संकट अगले 50 साल तक नहीं आएगा। लेकिन आज हमारा जिस तरह से ग्राउंड वाटर पर दबाव बढ़ रहा है, उसके कारण से जो हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स है, हमने उसको एड्रेस करने के लिए भी एक बार फिर मल्टी सेक्टरल मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप्स के माध्यम से देश में पहली बार हमने डिमांड साइड मैनेजमेंट को फोकस करते हुए अटल भूजल योजना प्रारंभ की, जिसमें गांव में काम करने वाले भूजल जानकार से लेकर के उस क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले NGO से लेकर के गांव के पानी समिति से लेकर के गांव की वॉश समिति से लेकर के सबको साथ जोड़े। पीने के पानी के समय में भी हमने तय किया, जिस तरह से सैनिटेशन में हमने गांव की स्वच्छता समिति बनाई थी, उसी समिति को पीने के पानी के प्रबंधन का दायित्व भी दिया, और अब उसी समिति को साथ में जोड़ करके जन भूजल के पुनर्भरण के लिए भी हम काम करें। वी वर्क एज ए टेक्निकल प्रोवाइडर, टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोवाइडर, वी वर्क एज ए फैसिलिटेटर, वी वर्क एज ए फाइनेंसर, बट अल्टीमेटली the village water organization, they have to sit together along with their PRI institutes, और वो साथ में बैठ करके जल के पुनर्भरण को किस तरह से किया जा सकता है इस पर काम करें। और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने विभिन्न योजनाओं के माध्यम से इस दिशा में भी बहुत तेजी से काम किया है। मैं अगर कहूं कि सक्सेस स्टोरीज पूरी दुनिया में जिस दिन सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स की लिखी जाएंगे, और उसमें निश्चित रूप से मल्टी स्टेक होल्डर पार्टनरशिप्स के बारे में चर्चा होगी, क्योंकि पूरी दुनिया को में इसको लेकर के अपेक्षा है। भारत का नाम और भारत की इन पार्टनरशिप्स का उल्लेख जो है वहां सुनहरे अक्षरों से किया जाएगा, और वो हम सब के लिए निश्चित रूप से जो है एक गौरव का पल होगा। ऐसे गौरव के पल के लिए मैं आप सबको शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच सर। आपने सबके बीच में जो भाषण दिया है, मुझे उम्मीद है कि सभी शायद इंस्पायर हो गए होंगे और मोटिवेट हो गए होंगे आपकी बातें सुनकर। वो बहुत ही सटीक और बैलेंस्ड आपका थॉट प्रोसेस रहा है। अब मैं आपके 10 मिनट और लूँगी, और क्योंकि हमारे वर्ल्ड वाटर काउंसिल के प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर लोए फॉशॉ बीच में ज्वाइन नहीं कर पाए थे, तो उनका एक एड्रेस है, वीडियो एड्रेस 6 मिनट का।
Excellencies, Mr. Ministers, dear Chairman and President, dear Indian friends of water, Namaste. India is a land of culture, a land of diversity and economic progress. It's blessed by the streams of many rivers that not only strengthens the economic prosperity of the country, but also upholds its emotional and cultural value. However, as resources are depleting and the world is struggling against disasters and crises, water has now become a commodity as expensive as gold in some places. Our world has recently experienced one of the biggest pandemics of the last century. While we were hoping for a year of economic growth in 2022, various global factors brought in further uncertainty. Today, we are talking about sustainable goals, but time and again we have emphasized that we cannot achieve water sustainability without food, food security, development, and education for all. Since we are talking about solutions, we need to better understand that the connections between supplying enough food, meeting rising energy needs, securing the right amount of water, and strengthening our education system, especially in a developing country like India, where the Prime Minister of the country, Mr. Narendra Modi, has emphasized the importance of saving and securing jal. This interlinkage between agriculture, energy, health, food, and education is not possible without efforts at both higher and local levels. This brings me to promote a major response, which is to encourage water action at local levels. Local refers to villages and countryside where many villagers live. India's rural population is close to 60% of the country's population. While this means increased agriculture, it questions the availability of water in areas at local levels. Even today, rural India depends on collecting water from far-off places. Rapid urbanization has increased the stress on the water resources, leading to scarcity or even depletion of some of them. It's therefore quite clear that water solutions cannot be adopted without being adapted locally. Sharing knowledge, data, ideas, and technology is essential. The best way to tackle complex issues on water management is through unity and joint efforts. My dear friends in India, your country represents the strength behind unity in diversity on a global scale. This is the moment when I would like to raise with you the concept and importance of a multi-stakeholder approach. Multi-stakeholder governance is a practice that brings multiple stakeholders together to participate in dialogue, decision-making, and the implementation of solutions. The multi-stakeholder approach is a new paradigm shift that will help us with many aspects of efficient water management. Be it agriculture, water, urban supply water, or improving water governance, effective multi-stakeholder participation can improve trust, generate consensus, enhance information sharing and communication between relevant actors, thereby stimulating the necessary momentum towards positive water governance change. As such, they are not only part of SDG-6, but is key to achieving the commitments of the World 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. My dear friends, the World Water Council brings its support to India's and other neighboring countries' joint effort in saving our water. Let us inspire our future generations to conserve water. Let us inspire the world with our efforts. Let us be an example to the world through our solutions and collaboration. Let us all take these aspirations to COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt next month, and then set the road to UN 2023 in New York. And to finish, I would like to invite you to the 10th World Water Forum that will be held in Bali, Indonesia, from 18 to 24th of May 2024, a forum in Asia after many years. India is more than welcome to bring its experience and know-how during the preparation of this forum. Let us all pledge to come together and implement responses for our world, our generations, and for our poorest populations. Dhanyawad.
Mr. Loy Foncho, for your address. I request Ms. Gayatri Sharma, a water warrior from Bhilwara district. She would take 2 minutes of yours, sir, and would speak here. And it has been requested specially by NWDA to include her in this program, because I'm sure sir appreciates the 70-year-old water warrior. Ms. Gayatri Sharma.
सबसे पहले मैं सभी का धन्यवाद करना चाहती हूँ कि आप सभी ने मेरे को यहाँ आने का मेरे को मौका दिया। मैं गायत्री शर्मा, मैं राजस्थान के मेवाड़ क्षेत्र भिलवाड़ जिले के छोटे से गांव की रहने वाली हूँ और मैं इंडिया वाटर वर्कशिप संस्था यंग वाटर लीडर के रूप में मैं कार्य कर रही हूँ। मेरे गांव में पानी का वाटर लेवल कम होने के साथ साथ उसमें फ्लोराइड की मात्रा बहुत अधिक है, जिसके कारण कम उम्र में ही लोगों को शारीरिक समस्या का सामना करना पड़ता है, जिसके कारण शारीरिक समस्या का काम करना पड़ता है। हर व्यक्ति को जल शिक्षा पर शिक्षित होना चाहिए, क्योंकि बेटी को शिक्षित होने के बराबर है जल शिक्षा। इसीलिए मैंने मेरे कॉलेज शिक्षा के साथ ही मोबाइल ऐप टूल द्वारा कुओं का जल स्तर मापने का कार्य शुरू किया और साथ ही किए कार्य का मानचित्र संस्था से प्राप्त कर लोगों को बताया कि किन कुओं में कितना जल स्तर है। ये जानकारी देकर मैं जल शिक्षा अभियान चला रही हूँ। मेरा मानना है कि बड़ों के साथ हर छोटा बच्चा भी जल शिक्षा अभियान, जल शक्ति अभियान के बारे में जाने समझे, ताकि जल सुरक्षा जल शिक्षा का अपन उपयोग कर सके, जल शिक्षा को अपना कर सके। जल शक्ति अभियान का संदेश हर गांव, हर पंचायत तक पहुंच सके, क्योंकि जल ना आपका है ना मेरा, ये हम सबका है। अपन जल बचाएंगे तभी हम जल का आगे वाले जीवन में अपन उपयोग कर पाएंगे, क्योंकि अगर अपन अभी नहीं समझे कि जल की महत्वता क्या है तो आगे आके हमें बहुत कठिनाई का सामना करना पड़ेगा। जल ही जीवन है। जय श्यामला। भिलवाड़ा जिले में बावड़ी गांव है, जाजपुर तहसील। नहीं 70 साल का नहीं बोला था।
थैंक यू गायत्री, आपने हम सबको सोचने का मौका दिया है कि आप इतनी सी उम्र में इतना सब कर रही हैं अपने गांव में, और धन्यवाद। इसी के साथ मैं आप सबका भी शुक्रिया अदा करूंगी। थैंक यू डिग्नेटरीज, IWF यूनिप आर ग्रेटफुल for you to taking out time from your extremely busy schedule for us and gracing this event. Now we have some technical presentations. Group photo. I would request all of you to please be seated. We have a technical presentation from Mr. Stuart Crane, Program Coordinator, SDG-6 Freshwater Ecosystems Unit, Ecosystem Division of United Nations Environment Program. Can you please add Mr.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody.
I hope, Divya, Mr. Crane was able to join.
Can I please confirm that you can hear me? Yes, hi. Can I please confirm that you can hear me?
Please, Mr. Crane, you're online. Please start your presentation.
Yes, many thanks. Can I please confirm you can see my presentation? I don't wish to
We are
start until I
able to
can.
see you, but not your presentation.
Okay. I'm not sure why you can only
Yes,
see
you will
me and
have
not
to
my.
pin the presentation. It's showing on the screen, but you'll have to pin the presentation.
I'm not sure how to do that.
Yes, now we can see it on screen.
You can see the presentation?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, thank
We
you.
can hear
And
you loud and clear.
super. Thank you so much for confirming that. Always good to start when you can see me and hear me. Very nice to meet you all. Good afternoon. My name is Stuart Crane. I'm joining you from Geneva in Switzerland. I work with UNEP's United Nations Environment Programme's Freshwater Unit. I'm going to give you a 10-minute technical presentation now on the work that I coordinate within UNEP on SDG indicator 6.6.1. And this work relates to tracking the changes in different types of freshwater ecosystems. So UNEP's a custodian agency of indicator 6.6.1. That means we have a responsibility towards all of our UN member states with supporting the monitoring and reporting of data on freshwater ecosystems. And in this particular indicator, we do that by using satellite-based Earth observations. And the reason we use global satellite Earth observations to track freshwater ecosystem changes is because it provides us with a global coverage of data at a very, very high resolution for all countries in the world. And it also gives us the opportunity of a very long time series of data. So UNEP has developed a data platform that we call the Freshwater Ecosystems Explorer. This is a free open access data platform, and it's here that we house all of our data on freshwater ecosystems. So the information that's collected from satellite imagery is transferred into statistics, and we calculate national statistics every single year, and we have data covering the last 21 years for all countries. And we're able to track the surface water changes and separate those surface water changes also into specific ecosystems such as inland wetlands, onto coastal ecosystems like mangroves, and also observe different aspects of ecosystems such as water quality. So we can see the changing size of ecosystems, the surface water, but we can also see changing water quality. And we can do all of that from satellite Earth observations. And every 3 years, we then obtain national approval of the information that is then reported to the United Nations Statistical Division in New York. And the last time we obtained national approval is in 2020, and next year we'll do another global data drive with the data and information we'll share out to countries. And what you're seeing here is a global map aggregated into river basins, and it's showing 20 years worth of data, and it's indicating river basins that have experienced high levels of change, far above a standard deviation. Those are indicated in light blue, and you can also see the river basins that are experiencing a high decrease in the availability of its surface water, and those river basins are indicated here in the yellow-orange color. What this is ultimately telling us is that those river basins indicating the blue color here have had a high increase in their availability. That's kind of correlates with increase in flooding, an increase in seasonal water. And conversely, where we have the high decrease, you're looking at areas where we've got a reduction in available surface water, and also correlates in areas where we're seeing the drying out of lakes, we're seeing the drying out of rivers, and the reduction in the availability of water. When you go onto the Freshwater Ecosystem Explorer, you can click on any country, and this is just a screenshot that I've taken, and the next few slides are all screenshots. And you can click on India, and you'll get a national statistical dashboard appearing. And here on this dashboard, you can start to see the long-term trends of freshwater ecosystems for India. So, for example, you can see that permanent water over the last 20 years has increased by 20%. We can see that your seasonal water has increased very, very substantially by over 50%. That's over the last 20 years, so a rapid increase in seasonal water. You can see that mangrove ecosystems have declined. For wetlands, we only have a baseline. And then we also have these aspects of water quality, so turbidity and trophic state in the large lakes. And we have an indication of the present condition of those compared to a baseline of 5 years ago. And on the Freshwater Ecosystem Explorer, you're also able to zoom down to any location of interest and start to see exactly where those changes are occurring. So here I've just taken a screen grab of one area in the east of India, just to show you, you can actually pinpoint very, very high level, high resolution changes and identify precisely where surface water changes are occurring. So that might be where surface water is being lost, or it might be where there's an increase in seasonal water. And this is very important because while it's good to have a national level picture, decisions on water are very often made and should be made at a very local level. And therefore, it's very important to be able to zoom down to a very local level and identify changes in your river basin. The information that we have derived from Earth observations is at a 30-meter by 30-meter resolution. So it's very, very high resolution with a very long time series. And this gives us a very sort of confident, robust view of the data, and gives us an understanding of these trends that are occurring at a local level and at a national level. If you wish, you can extract this information in different ways and sort of understand not just visually what's happening in your country, but you can also represent the statistics in these different graphs and start to dig into the annual changes. You can start to dig into month-by-month changes. You can look at your reservoirs, they're also included, and you can start to see data when reservoirs were running low or when reservoirs are at their peak. So the idea here is that you can actually zoom in and represent the data both statistically and visually as you wish, provide maximum flexibility to the user. This is just an image of wetlands. We also have produced a global wetlands map. We've generated a baseline of wetlands data. This is inland wetlands data that we consider peatlands and marshes, bogs and fens. It does not include coastal mangroves. We separate that out. And here, again, it just gives you an indication of where the wetlands are. And next year we're expecting to have a new wetlands map, and you start to see statistics emerge per country, including for India. You can also generate lake-specific information from this Earth observation data. Here, I have just clicked on one lake, And you can have statistics appearing across all of the years that we have it. So for this particular lake, I've clicked on turbidity, that's what I'm interested in, and I can see since August 2009, periodic data showing where the turbidity level has gone from low, medium, high, and even to extreme at particular points in that time series. And that's very impactful because then you can start to understand what is driving those changes and what's causing that water pollution and the change in that freshwater ecosystem. So this is just to emphasize that while we have national and river basin statistics, we also have lake-specific information that's available for users on the freshwater side. Let me just conclude my presentation by saying a few remarks. Firstly, that the data that we have here is presented annually, but we have it as a long time series. What we're trying to indicate is these long-term trends, the statistically robust trends. But we also have these kind of sub-national, either a river basin or lake level information available for you. We have it available at the ecosystem level, and this is free and open access to all users. And the information that is contained on the site is the information that we officially report as national statistical data. We have a high confidence in the data, and we have published methodologies that come from our data providers, and the information is also validated by countries and becomes country-approved information. We are working on even bolstering the site with more data, and we're going to add water quantity data next year. So we'll start to see the changes in water quantity per basin. And also, as I mentioned, we're going to have a new wetlands map. Lastly, I'd just like to sort of conclude by saying a couple of policy remarks. One is that freshwater ecosystems are sort of foundational ecosystems, and they really can help us make progress in terms of water security. They also bear the brunt of many of our development actions and climate impacts, but they're a very big part of the solution. And implementing broad-based, nature-based solutions that aim to protect and restore our freshwater ecosystems, in particular our wetlands, have an incredible multiplier effect in terms of water security and our progress, not just towards implementing Goal 6, but towards other goals. Lastly, that water and climate change are inextricably linked. And while we're really understanding the impacts of climate change and feeling those impacts right now, freshwater ecosystems are a terrific means of trying to address them. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I will conclude by just saying, if you wish to find out more information, you can follow this link.
Thank you, Mr. Crane, for your presentation. Now I request Mr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna to please make his presentation as well.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm just going to share some of the slides, and as I said, it focuses on the performance of SDG-6 not only for India, but it also focuses on what the other countries in the sub-region are doing. How is Asia Pacific, and which are the areas perhaps where these partnerships will be required? And Honorable Minister was saying, he was talking about government to government. So now it will also perhaps gives us an opportunity to look for one country government to the another country government.
So if you look at, which is on a SDG-6 about is a clean water and sanitation. So if you look at the progress on different 17 goals, and this is our SDG progress report, which is issued by our office in Bangkok. And this is for the extreme left graph. This graph is about the South and Southwest Asia, which covers 10 countries. Then you have in the middle, which is an Asia and Pacific. And the third one, which is the extreme right, is about India. So if you will see, and the focus is on clean water and sanitation, which is goal 6. If you will see, you will find South and Southwest Asia with a target of 2021 is way behind, but the target for SDG-6 for Asia and Pacific is slightly better than the South and Southwest Asia. But in case of India, if you will see, you will find SDG-6, it has already achieved or crossed the, pro rating of 2021 target. The targets have been taken as 2030 if this is the goal, and there are different indicators. So for each indicator, how the data has behaved, and as we were talking about that, one of the targets regarding open defecation, India has completed it way back in 2019. So that is the effect where you will find India doing much better. And so when we are talking about some kind of multi-stakeholder consultation, which talks about government to government or a cross-border cooperation or a knowledge sharing, this is where perhaps India has an edge over the South and Southwest Asia as well as Asia and Pacific. If you look into SDG Goal 6 again, and then we go to the different targets, this is also again a comparative chart. You can see in 6.1.1, South and Southwest Asia is lagging behind a little bit than Asia and Pacific, but in all the goals, if you will see, the countries are lagging behind. And in fact, the effect of COVID is on 6.4.2, 6.6.1, 6B1, where in South and Southwest Asia, it's actually going in a reverse direction. That means it's going in a negative path, whereas for 6.6.1 in Asia and Pacific, that is more severe than South and Southwest Asia. This is only just to give you a glimpse of different countries where they stand in terms of their progress. And what is alarming is also, if you would have seen the background note or the question which will come up in the panel to talk about the data. And you can see, of course, it's a case of Afghanistan, least developed country, and you will find in certain cases the data is only available for 2008. But across the board, you will find when you go to the different countries, even if you see the Bangladesh, you will see the data is not available for many of the indicators. And so that also is one of the challenges. And these arrows of green and flat, whether it is moving ahead in a positive manner or it's flat or red, means it will be behind the target for the SDG. And this is the data for 2021, which we compiled into our report. Again, if you see Bhutan, even in the water, there are definitely data gaps, and you will find that how different indicators and targets are looking into. India, if you will see, again, in terms of, if you see the 6.5.1, the data for the world is available, but for India, it is not available. But for the other, like water use efficiency, water body extent, it is available, but the data is not latest. So those are the challenges even which India faces. Iran also has the issue, but in 6.5.1, it is much better than the world. If you will see, Maldives, not many targets. You can see only 3 of them which are available. The data, the rest is not available. Similarly, for Nepal, you can find some of the data is available, and
how much population using at least the basic drinking water services is a good score of 90%, whereas 76% for sanitation. So they are slightly better off. These are the ones which you can even see for India. Again, it's high, 90.5% and 71.3%, which we were talking about. The Honorable Minister is talking about that. So there are different indicators which one can see, and the targets is similarly for Pakistan. So you will find in Southwest Asia, the population which is using at least the basic drinking water services is high. But the other indicators, if you will see, will have a problem relating to attaining their targets. So these are the challenges. Of course, for many of the countries in this region, you will find that they are lagging behind on certain of some of the targets which are there. And Turkey also has. But again, if you will see, the point is Turkey also faces the challenge relating to having a data. But it's still, if you see those two population using at least the basic drinking water or least basic sanitation services, definitely its score is much higher than any other country. So there are many challenges which the sub-region faces, and it's not only for the India, but for this. And the primary reason is the use of water for power sector and agriculture. And most of the countries in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, whatever you name it, they require this water. And that is where these water is the fresh water which is utilized. And we talked about groundwater depletion or even the surface water depletion. Also, we do not have an effective management. Of course, there is a debate that when you are constructing dams or if you are constructing barrages for channeling the water into more disciplined way of irrigation, it may also bring environmental challenges and dislocation of the people. So that challenge also remains. And very recently we found and we saw also water can also bring disasters. And very recently it happened in Pakistan. Also, that is another issue. Honorable Minister has already talked about the freshwater withdrawal as a proportion of available freshwater resources. It's depleting and the usage is increasing more and more. That is putting the pressure. And so wastage of water, especially the fresh water, if unless controlled, either through technology or disciplining the habits of the people, it is going to create a much bigger challenge. And even if one would find that most of these water will again go back into the system, that means the ecosystem, but given the level of pollution which is there in our society and especially in all the countries in this part of the world, the water which we are utilizing slowly, even if it goes into the groundwater, it has many contaminants in it. So that also has a very complex situation where the soil erosion or other pollutions are compounding to it. There are also challenges relating to the local administrative units for operationalizing these policies. Of course, the minister was talking a lot about how clean water or these testing facilities have been provided, but perhaps in the region, there are challenges for other countries as well. And data I have already talked about, and these are also inducing climate change, disaster-prone region, which is, of course, South Asia is, and we are also not very effective in tapping the wastewater. So recycling of water or natural resources is also required in this region. And in this regard, it is important that when these countries are having these common challenges, they need to be addressed not at a local level, or a country level, but at a regional level. And therefore, the collaboration between the countries or using it, a regional platform for learning from each other, sharing their technology, sharing their knowledge would be more impactful than a country working in isolation. With that objective of promotion and sharing of knowledge, we have created a South Asia network on the Sustainable Development Goals. India Water Foundation is one of our members in that. And this has, it has a website, and this website also has many of the one of the good things which we have is we have a good practices database. So it was launched in December, and we have some good practices which we have a database on it. One can go and you can see. So we have, you can see across the board as on date, how many good practices relating to SDG-6 is there. There are total 62. We are building the database. We have something around 1,200 good practices which we have taken from the South Asia region, mostly taking at a local level or a sub-national level or even a national level, which is being done at a very micro level or a national level to bring certain changes. And you can filter by the goal, you can filter by target, you can filter by country, you can filter by keywords. And this is what we are trying to promote between the policy makers and the think tanks, the researchers, to educate and learn from one country to another country. These are some of these databases which is there. The other important thing which we do is we also organize South and Southwest Asia Forum on the SDG. The next forum is being held in Islamabad in Pakistan from 5th to 7th of December. It will be in a hybrid mode. So we are having few people who will be attending in person, but there are also opportunities for people to attend online. And the event page, web page is here. But importantly, that one of the themes for this sub-regional dialogue, multi-stakeholder consultation, is also SDG-6. And that attunes, because what we try to do is we take the theme of HLPF. So this year we have taken a theme of HLPF 2023. So what are the challenges, what are the issues, how these challenges can be tackled is going to be discussed here, which many of the UN agencies who are partnering with us, World Bank, ADB, UNIDO, UNDP, UNEP, UN country team, they are all participating, and it's not only that they are participating from Pakistan, but also from ADB regional office, World Bank staff outside Pakistan are visiting for participating in this, sharing their experiences. And we want to have a common agenda for South and Southwest Asia for these goals, which will be discussed, which is Goal 6, Goal 7, Goal 9, Goal 11, and Goal 17. And then this will be discussed at an Asia Pacific platform, because we organize Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development, which will be held and prepare an Asia Pacific plan, and both of them will then be presented in the HLPF as these reports. So if anybody who is interested in or participating, and many of you are working on SDG-6, so it could be an opportunity that even if you join virtually, you can participate, observe, as well as intervene or share your concern. And this is a multi-stakeholder consultation process where we bring the policy makers, we bring the international organizations, we bring the civil society organization, we bring the think tanks, and we bring the private sector. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sudesh Ratna, for your presentation and making us all aware of the SDG-6 progress in the South and Southwest Asia countries. Now we have a very interesting panel discussion on accelerating SDG-6 achievements through multi-stakeholder partnerships. This panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Divya Dutt, Program Manager, UN Environment Program. And the speakers for this panel discussion are Mr. Satya Tripathi, Secretary General, Global Alliance for Sustainable Planet, Mr. Mark Smith, TG International Water Management Institute, Mr. Patricia Mayas, Land and Water Resources Specialist FAO, Mr. Rajas Sudesh Ratna, Deputy Head and Senior Economic Affairs Officer, United Nations ESCAPE, South and Southwest Asia Office, Mr. Yerkert Lander, Director Science and Policy, Secretariat of the Convention on Wetlands, Mr. Satyapriya, Senior Water Resources Management Specialist, World Bank, Mr. MP Singh, Chief of Development Operations, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and Mr. Ratnesh Jha, Executive Director, UN Global Compact Network. I request the panelists who are present here to please come on the stage. Three of our panelists would be joining online, Mr. Satya Tripathi, Ms. Patricia Mejia, and Mr. Yerkert Lander. Over to you, Dr. Divya, please.
Good evening, everyone. As Shweta said, we are looking forward to a very exciting discussion because we have a very eminent panel with us whose experience together spans almost every aspect of the issues that we are talking about, whether it's governance, technology, science, policy, data, etc. So I think amongst the panelists that we have here, we should be really able to sort of focus on some of the critical issues that need to be addressed. I don't want to come in between this illustrious panel and the audience, even though the audience has depleted, but I'm hoping that, some of these messages through whatever publication proceedings are brought out will then be disseminated to a larger audience. So hopefully we will still be able to take the word to a much larger group. But before I invite our eminent panelists to speak, I had a few points which I wanted to highlight. A lot has been said since afternoon, and I sort of won't repeat, the issues that have been raised about how important this issue is in terms of linkages with other SDGs, in terms of, its contribution to health, livelihoods, food security, etc., and also how this is of a particular concern to India, given the large dependence on agriculture and all the issues that we face in the country, whether it is groundwater quality or wastewater treatment or even access to water, even though there are many notable policies that the minister spoke about, which have made a very sort of significant impact in terms of some of these key indicators in the water sector. UNEP, as the Global Environment Authority, connects the issue of fresh water to other issues of sustainable development, such as oceans, land, and agriculture. And essentially, our focus has been on building national capacity to monitor freshwater ecosystem health, including water quality, facilitating integrated water resources management, and providing guidelines and inputs for country-level action to protect and restore freshwater ecosystems. Very importantly, as the custodian of 3 indicators under SDG-6, and these 3 indicators relate to freshwater ecosystem health, freshwater ecosystem quality, and integrated water resources management, UNEP has dedicated significant efforts to assisting countries to understand the purpose and methodologies and processes for data collection around these indicators. And I think the theme for this discussion is extremely appropriate because this is an issue which no government can address on its own, and multi-stakeholder partnerships is the only way to address the different dimensions of the water issue that we are facing. Just very quickly, I want to highlight 5 critical issues that I think one would need to focus on in the achievement of SDG-6. These relate to inefficiency in water use. We know about the inefficiencies that prevail in the agriculture sector already. And saving just a fraction of that amount can significantly alleviate water stress globally. And this really calls for an urgent review of policies around water pricing as well as crop choices. The second issue is on water pollution and wastewater. Estimates suggest that if natural environment continues to be degraded and unsustainable pressures put on global water resources continue, 45% of global GDP, 52% of the world's population, and 40% of the global grain production can be at risk by 2050. And therefore, tackling pollution at source and treating wastewater is absolutely critical because it then mitigates costly impact of pollution and increases the availability of water resources, in addition, of course, to recovering valuable nutrients and water resources. So the first issue was on efficiencies in the water sector, second on water pollution, wastewater treatment, and what kind of technologies we need for wastewater treatment. The third issue is the impact of climate change on water and extreme hydrological events that we are witnessing, whether it's droughts, floods, etc., all around the globe, and including in India. And I won't sort of go into the statistics here, but that's the third important issue that we need to look at in terms of how do you strengthen resilience and reduce vulnerability, which is related to these water-related extreme events. The fourth issue would be on health of ecosystems, including wetlands. Again, there are statistics that about 64 to 71% of all natural wetlands have actually been lost since 1990 as a result of anthropogenic activity. So wetlands are, I think, our buffer to a lot of extreme events, and it's very important that we sort of bring back the focus not just on the health of water bodies, but also associated ecosystems like wetlands. And finally, the issue of inequity, inequality in the availability and quality of water resources increasing. People without adequate access to drinking water, without access to energy, sanitation, and those living in polluted areas often constitute overlapping segments of the population. The implication here is that they are exposed to multiple stresses with one compounding the other, and therefore increasing access to safe drinking water and sanitation for those without access should be the first priority in ensuring that no one is left behind. And it was very encouraging to hear the minister talk about some of the efforts of the government of India and in the states in this direction. So with that, I'm going to take a pause and hand over the baton to our very eminent panelists. I'm going to first invite Mr. Satya Tripathi, who is joining us virtually, I believe. Okay, so I understand Mr. Tripathi has not been able to join. We will move to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, in the interest of time, I'll keep the introductions really brief, but I think it's important to introduce the panelists so that you have a sense of, the kind of experience that they're bringing to this discussion. So Mr. Mark Smith is the Director General of the International Institute of Water Management, and he brings more than 25 years of research and program management experience in water resources, agriculture, climate change, and sustainability. He's an entrepreneurial innovator, integrating water, land, ecosystems, and outcomes for sustainable development. He's a pioneer in multidisciplinary teams and program development, bridging science, practice, and policy. So Mark, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. Do you hear me well? You hear me? Thank you so much. And thank you for the introduction of those 5 key issues, which I think I thoroughly agree that those are 5 key issues that we can make a huge difference with if we can move forward on them. In terms of this question, the focus of the panel today, how do we make best use of multi-stakeholder platforms? How do we encourage them and ensure that we get the outcomes and impacts from working through multi-stakeholder processes? The way I think is very useful to think about that challenge is to look at achieving the SDGs, or indeed different aspects of development, achieving the SDGs as a challenge of catalyzing and managing change. So the fundamental task is to catalyze and manage change in complex settings, so across societies, and scale those changes. And when we, in my mind, when we use that framing, we can then start to deploy some of the principles of change management deploy some of the principles of change management and how we can engage multiple stakeholders in doing that. So what I'm about to outline is actually experience that I gained over many years working in my previous job in IUCN. So I worked for 12 years as the director of the Global Water Program in the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And this is a framework for managing change in river basins is where we typically applied it. So in sustainable water management. And that having come to IMI, that I try and use in supporting my colleagues and encouraging my colleagues to put together effective strategies for projects and programs to help drive change. So the key here is to recognize first that to work on change, we need to think across scales. So thinking and working locally, as well as thinking and catalyzing at national and international scales. And locally, let's focus on two key activities. The first we call joint action, and the second consensus building. So by joint action, I mean, if we're focused on solving a particular problem, whether that's in relation to the 5 key actions that you outlined in terms of raising water use efficiency, managing wetlands better, managing water pollution, etc. So what are the joint actions that different groups of stakeholders can take together? And by taking action together, they work practically, they solve problems, they provide outcomes from problem solving that help people and assist people in making a difference on those problems. So that joint action might be in relation to different stakeholders working together on learning and capacity building, working together on data, working together on restoring a wetland, working together on reoperating a dam. So out of that, you get coalitions, you get trust. That's key for multi-stakeholder partnerships. The second element at local level is consensus building. So based on using that experience of working and building trust across partnerships, bringing together local institutions. So partnerships amongst local institutions, local governments, water user associations, small businesses, etc. And working through community level platforms, for example, with those different partnerships to have a clear way forward together on solving particular problems and making progress on SDG-6 on some of the key elements. So that's local level actions to catalyze and drive change. Then thinking at the larger scales, and this is, we're doing that this week. This first element I'm going to mention is what we're doing this week. So this is developing and changing the dialogue on change, developing and changing the dialogue on what the agenda is for delivering the SDGs. So bringing together policymakers, businesses, development practitioners, thought leaders, youth leaders on talking about and agreeing upon the way forward. And that can be informed by the good results of good partnerships at local scales. So out of that dialogue process comes further multi-stakeholder partnerships now at the national and global levels. And then the fourth element is policy framing. So based on all of that experience locally, the results that you achieve locally, the consensus amongst partners about the effective courses of action, the consensus at higher levels about good ways forward, is then working on policy. So working in partnership with governments on reframing policies to help take forward those actions, scale those actions, make investable the kinds of programs that governments need to have. But equally, we can think about that in terms of policy framing in the broadest sense, in terms of businesses and their strategies, and so partnerships with global businesses, for example, on implementing actions around SDG-6. So alongside those different modalities for making multi-stakeholder partnerships effective and impactful is recognizing that there's a role for organizations that broker amongst all those different activities, that facilitate all those different activities, that facilitate and help make sure multi-stakeholder partnerships are effective and based on inclusion and equality and so on. So for me, those are the elements of good multi-stakeholder processes that help to not just bring people together to talk, but bring people together to take action together and scale that action so that you can make progress on such complex challenges as we have around SDG-6, and indeed as we have around those key points that you outlined in your introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I think it was very useful to sort of, we talk about stakeholder consultations and stakeholder engagement, but what does it actually entail and what is the process on the ground? So it was really useful to sort of get that bird's eye view of what that process entails. I'm going to now move to Dr. Rajan Sudesh Ratna. Dr. Ratna is the Deputy Head of South and Southwest Office of UNESCAP. He's sort of held this position since August 2018, and he's leading research, policy, advisory, and capacity building work on helping countries accelerate progress towards achieving the SDGs. So over to Dr. Ratna. And sorry, I forgot to mention about 5 to 6 minutes for each panelist so that we have.
I am overwhelmed because I was on opening and then technical, and so I don't want to repeat, but some of the points which I would like to bring to the attention and the questions which are there. And maybe I will start from the bottom, which is fifth one, how significant is strengthening linkages between environment, development, and people-centered approach. You see, the overall SDG, and earlier we were talking about sustainability, but when it came for SDG, it was very clearly made that it has 3 pillars of economy, environment, and social. So when you are going to achieve the SDG, any of these pillars, if they are not achieved, then achieving SDG will be difficult. That's number one. Secondly, as we have deliberated upon even from the opening till the technical presentations, water, clean water or sanitation, you cannot see only from that vertical. It has a multifarious approach because it impacts on environment. Clean water, one of the difficulty or the challenges of depletion of the water or not having a clean water is because of the pollution. So environmental angle is also important. And then why not the people? Because we all know, and at least in India and South Asia, I have seen, there is a lot of wastage which happens in water. You will leave the tap open for a long time when you are doing your brush or something, and you can conserve water. There are taps nowadays in public places which are with the sensor, but they are not very popular in household to conserve the water, right? But these can only come when you have the awareness, when you create a network and when you create awareness to the people where not only the national government, but also the local government, the think tanks, the civil society, the self-help group, their participation becomes all the more important because they can go more deeper to the people in educating, creating that awareness. At the same time, whole of the government approach is definitely required, and especially because Arvindji talked a little bit about it in terms of localization. That is also one of the important aspects which are required.
But to go to the local level, what we need, and I was talking about, if you will see, you will find that most of the data which I shown was at a national level. It's not at a district level, it's not at a local level, but in India, Niti Aayog has done through MOSPI a lot of work. Every year they publish the SDG progress report. A couple of months ago, they came out with a Northeast region report on the SDG, and they looked at the district. They went to the district, they went to the villages, and they put those indicators and targets, and they have identified where there is gap and what is the level of the gap. Now, unless these kind of data are made available and a system is there in place, evidence-based policy making or intervention by the government, where you need to really intervene, will not be very effective. And that is where the very importance of the data comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to, I understand that Mr. Satya Tripathi has been able to join us. Rita, can you confirm if he's there? Okay. So I have the privilege of inviting Mr. Satya Tripathi. He is the Secretary General of the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet. He's a development economist, lawyer, and change maker with over 40 years of very varied experience. Mr. Tripathi is the Chancellor of the Kalinga Institute of Social Science, which is the world's largest academic institution dedicated exclusively to indigenous people and cultures. He is also a Senior Distinguished Fellow on Innovative Finance at the World Agroforestry Center. He has, as some of you might already know, served with the United Nations for more than 2 decades in key positions, and was most recently the UN Assistant Secretary General, head of the New York office of United Nations Environment Program, and Secretary of the United Nations Environment Management Group. So, Mr. Tripathi, over to you.
Thank you so much, and greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Greetings from New York. The matter we are discussing is of grave significance, not just to India, but also to the world. But let's focus on India for a bit. India, as we know, has roughly 18% of the world's population, with only 4% of the freshwater resources that we can rely upon. So it is one of the most water-stressed countries on the planet. And add to that the unsustainable agriculture and the dropping water tables, the increasing arsenic levels because of higher concentration owing to less amount of water in the underground aquifers. It makes it a perfect storm from a development planning perspective, and the biggest challenge. So there's the policy, there's the politics, and there's the science. The science is pretty clear. In terms of policy, the biggest challenge is that most of the times, whether it's the corporate world or the public sector, which includes the government at all levels, there is little thinking that goes into really understanding the diverse nuances of water management while making policy decisions, and that is a huge challenge. At a macro level, yes, the government of India does an incredible job at looking at the bigger challenges and offering systemic solutions. But as you go down deeper to the village levels or the community levels, many a times there's little guidance available to the local actors to do what is right, watershed management, rainwater harvesting. And then so I think that is a big policy challenge that we need to look at. On a more global scale, while people talk often about silos, about water issues in particular regions, geographic or continental or river basins. But one thing that is not often talked about is that out of the 193 member nations of the United Nations, 154 countries actually share water bodies. And that is often lost in translation. So global cooperation on managing watershed and water tables is extremely important. And of course, the rights of riparian states, and so that's another conversation. But and then of course we should focus a bit on the solutions and what we could possibly do. And one of the things that we at the Global Alliance have been a big advocate of is regenerative agriculture. And India is already doing great in terms of, I think it is some of the programs in India in different states, especially Andhra Pradesh, are by themselves the largest such regenerative agriculture programs anywhere on the planet. And that the evidence is now compelling. We have been associated with some of these programs over the last few years. In my time with UNEP and the UN system, and also now with the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet, that you can actually turn the tide on water scarcity if you look at holistic solutions that conserve water, that bring back the water table, that help heal the ecosystem degeneration and bring back the ecosystems and birds and bees to agricultural landscapes as well as trees. So I think the solutions are there, but we need to look at these solutions as aiding and abetting the questions that different ministries have without working in silos, but working together and looking at it as something that, for example, the Water Resources Ministry should think about deploying some of its resources into regenerative agriculture because it helps regenerate the water resources as well. So a cross-system thinking would certainly help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tripathi. And, I mean, it's sort of the very important point of how we need to transcend boundaries at multiple levels, sectors, stakeholders, countries even, if we are to address the issue of water in the manner that, for it to be most effective for the solutions, for the challenges that we are facing today. With that, let me move on to our next panelist, Yerker Tamilander. Yerker? Yerker is Director, Science and Policy in the Secretariat of the Convention on Wetlands. He coordinates support to the Scientific and Technical Review Panel of the Convention, engagement in global policy processes, and support to contracting parties in relation to wetlands and sustainable development policy and linkages between science and policy. He has over 25 years of international experience with the United Nations Environment Programme, as well as in the International Union for Conservation of Nature and the Finnish Institute of Marine Research. So Yerker, over to you, and I'm hoping you can also sort of draw on and link up to the point that was made by Mr. Tripathi on how in some of these global approaches and global processes we can transcend national boundaries and sort of take a more watershed approach across countries to address these issues. Yerker, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me well, and of course, congratulations on organizing this policy dialogue in the context of the 7th India Water Week. I'm very happy to be here. I say a few words about the Convention on Wetlands to begin with, because I think it carries logically from your instructions to me. The Convention is a global binding agreement with 172 contracting parties currently. And I think the best known aspect of the convention is perhaps the designation of wetlands of international importance, the so-called Ramsar sites. Now, this year, India has designated 26 new wetlands of international importance, taking its total number to 75, which is indeed an auspicious number this year. So I want to congratulate the government of India on making this very significant progress in implementing the convention. That said, under the convention, parties work towards wise use of all wetlands as a contribution to sustainable development. And that, of course, entails the vehicles to achieve that is integrated wetland policies, consideration of wetlands across sectors, and really identifying and harnessing the multiple benefits arising from wetlands. This is, of course, crucial to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in large part because of how central water is to achieving the entirety of the agenda. as Satya mentioned, most countries share water bodies with other countries. And indeed, this is the reason why the convention is there in the first place. You need an international instrument to achieve agreements around topics that concern multiple countries. And you could say that the convention is the global intergovernmental instrument for natural water infrastructure. As a convention, it's of course a kind of partnership. It's a partnership among governments. Importantly, stakeholders do participate in and provide input to deliberations, if not engaging in the decision-making per se. And implementation actually requires partnerships on multiple levels with multiple stakeholders. Maybe as a couple of examples, our Conference of the Parties meets next week here in Geneva and in Wuhan in China. Among the topics being discussed in this COP is wetland city accreditation and the role of wetlands in urban environments and how that may be used for enhanced living conditions, better water services, flood mitigation, cooling of the local climate, you name it. And another topic, again, a draft resolution on the agenda is on youth, a enormously important stakeholder group that I think Mark also mentioned in his intervention. So perhaps that's enough about the convention itself. I want to turn for a moment to this issue of multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approaches. As many have already pointed out, the policy and institutional landscape remains somewhat fragmented between sectors, level of government, and decisions taken in one sector often doesn't really fully consider the impacts of water availability or other aspects, water quality in other sectors. To some extent, this is compounded by limited data and information, or limited availability of data and information, limited exchange across sectors and across jurisdictions. And it's crucial that we can start to fill those gaps and build those bridges where they're currently lacking. Now, a means to that end is the national wetlands inventories that are developed by parties under the convention. They're tools for collecting information on wetlands, for supporting monitoring and assessment, and for informing national planning and national decision-making, subnational planning, subnational decision-making. This is reflected in the strategic plan of the convention, which includes a target on development of these inventories. Also, maybe taking a step back to Stuart's presentation before, in addition to being national decision and planning and assessment tools, these inventories are also the means by which parties report on implementation of the convention. And that forms the basis for tracking SDG indicator 661. It is one basis for tracking SDG 661 on the extent of water-related ecosystems for which the convention is a co-custodian with UNEP. The reason I emphasize this is that it provides a formally adopted framework with a regular, consistent reporting mechanism that is anchored in national governments. It has utility for the purposes I mentioned, but it also has utility beyond the convention itself or beyond the environment sector itself. It can be leveraged in other processes, whether it is in relation to agricultural planning or in relation to analysis of trade-offs between different water uses. Of course, wetland extent is also currently included as a headline indicator under Goal A in the draft Global Biodiversity Framework. It would seem quite reasonable and important that that this is retained in the agreement that ultimately is adopted. So perhaps I could briefly touch on India's work on national wetlands inventory. I believe the Space Application Center in Ahmedabad has conducted quite extensive and quite detailed wetland mapping across the nation with state and union territory maps with 19 or so wetland types, including then, of course, arriving at the total area and the ability to track over time. This is encouraging, of course, but if I take a look at the global situation as of our Conference of the Parties, again happening next week, just short of half of the parties have actually established national wetlands inventories, with another 40% almost reporting that they are in progress or having them planned. So there's encouraging news, but the lack of those inventories or equivalent systems is actually a significant bottleneck to monitoring, to tracking success of the global targets, and to actually doing something concrete about the cross-sectoral linkages and the understanding across sectors that is required. So significant work remains to be done, but the basis for it does exist both in international agreement and in the ongoing efforts by parties. And perhaps my last point would then be, if those systems are in place and if we can move towards the governance changes that are needed to make better decisions, then suddenly the picture will look quite different to the one we currently have, which is one of very, very extensive wetland loss of wetland services and huge vulnerability. So governance needs to somehow be adapted for enhanced cross-sectoral collaboration. It needs also be adapted for different scale considerations, so that basin scale may become a much more significant planning unit and a management unit, especially as it relates to watering strategies and tapping water and replenishing, ensuring that there is a replenishment of natural water reserves. In that process, of course, we need to foster that multi-stakeholder engagement and the participation, the public participation. The public participation not only in the planning, but also in the evaluation and the adaptive management of resources. It's very encouraging to see in this dialogue, for example, that there's such a broad range of representatives across national line ministries, state government, union territories, and so on. And I think that is indeed a basis for moving forward. With that, I will end here, and hopefully, if there's time, we'll come back with a few more points. And that's all for now. Thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you, Jirka. I'm going to now turn to Dr. Satyapriya from the World Bank, and I'm sure that in his intervention he will talk a little bit more about this very important issue that Jirka, you raised and we've been discussing of the whole issue of governance and adaptive management. If Satyaji, if you can talk a little bit about some of your work at the bank and how you've ensured these processes work effectively on the ground, and then how are these being scaled up, and what are the lessons that we have for scaled up multi-stakeholder processes? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for the invitation and bringing us to this very important, the multi-stakeholder discussion panels. There are many ways we can discuss this issue, and multi-stakeholder partnerships or multi-stakeholder enabling, making those partnerships to take place, really critical. But where is the entry point? Where are we coming into that? Because it provides a role and a space for everyone. First and foremost, it's the government which has to be there on the seat. That requires also the participations from the private companies, enablers, those who comes, civil society, all the multilateral, bilaterals, and more so across the line departments, which is the whole of the government approach by themselves. That's what the multi-stakeholder partnership. It also brings a question that what is the best kind of methods and practice of having a multi-stakeholder partnership to function and implement projects on ground. Water and SDG-6, water itself is a connector, right? Water is not used by the Ministry of Jal Shakti or Water Resources Department by anywhere in the world, but water is a connector, and all the line departments and the people in society are using water. And therefore, all are users, whereas the custodian and the nodal remains for management of water is still with the water resources. That itself by default is not a right approach to manage, because there is no one ministry, there is no one portfolio, there is no one policy which can help you manage that resource. So I think that's very, very central in terms of that. And since you raised about it, what we do at the bank, because at the bank we have to implement the project on the ground. And for implementation, we need to make sure what really the multi-stakeholder partnership we are talking.
What is the role of matrix? Who is doing what? Where it is contributing? Where are there, already kind of foot on the ground in terms of implementations or enabling or technologies and so on and so forth. So that's very, very important. If you look into the sphere of that, government, civil societies, and a program driven in implementation is more towards social development because this is coming from the public resource. When you bring the private sector, it becomes the business sustainability first. These two are not similar. They are dissimilar in nature. Therefore, it is very important. Their role is required, but we have to make it happen so that they become a contributor, and that really helps you to ensure that social sustainability will be there. Because today also we talked a lot about the Jal Jeevan, making sure every household will have the water from the tap. The question will come, will the water will be flowing in the tap down the line 3 years, right? Where is the source? Have we looked enough to make sure that source will remain sustainable for 20 years? Therefore, these pipe investments are what? So that's where it is very, very important to look into those aspects. Now, in terms of coming to the how we come to implement it, the whole of government approach is itself a puzzle. And I give you an example because we are currently implementing the Atal Bhujal Yojana. The Honorable Minister already mentioned about, and I'm the task team leader from the bank for implementations. We have a whole things going on for convergence to make it happen with all the line departments to deliver the local scale. That is there also the multi-stakeholders, right? The role of communities in making sure what they want, how we are making sure it is delivered. And they also want it. It is not that we are coming and delivering it because we have to deliver and get the results out as part of project deliverables. So this is very, very important from the perspective that when we come to implement, what is this cross-sectoral mechanism? We need to understand this. It is very easily said that as a stakeholders, all the line departments should work. Why are they not working? Each one of them have their own mandate. They do have things to deliver. But to achieve what we call in terms of the SDG-6, if we achieve the goal of SDG-6, in my view, we will achieve the goal of most of the SDGs, which is the 17th SDG focused itself on the multi-stakeholder partnership. Same applies with the water. If we have all the line departments come together, but what is gap? It comes again, the issue of the governance, the issue of lack of process and how to make it happen. As part of convergence, we are making sure that we under the groundwater have all the line departments at the state, at the central and local level. Make sure on the same Gram Panchayat, if they have a program and they're using water, they have to be part of water security plan so that the interventions are sustained, making sure whatever you withdraw is also acceptable and sustainable into the process, looking at the water budget being done. That is all good said, done. But again, it comes to the point that if we have to scale, it requires change in reform. It requires change in national level, but also enabling at the state, district, and below at the Gram Panchayat level. And there comes data. Of course, data remains very, very key and important. Nothing to be said on that. But beyond data, we also have to see that the whole process of having the second question, which has the data framework, the whole of government approach and cross-sectoral approach, right? And that's where comes the role of the local communities. The local community has to be empowered, right? Because they are the users are many times the better planners, right? Because they know what works, what doesn't work for them. So if we make, and that's where the question you raised about not adapt to the situations. How can we adapt to the local environment in terms that the solution will work at the ground, which really helps achieve not only the goals which we are looking from the SDG, but also helps achieve the end target in terms of those communities to fall in place. The other question comes, which when we look again from the question of sustainability, all the environmental issues and linkages, I think climate change is important. If we have understood climate change impact, I think water is understood. In my view, water is climate, climate is water. So the lingo of water and climate is all the same, whichever way you explain. If we have got and achieved the resilience through water, we will tackle the climate change. And I think the COP27 starting next week is right discussing about the implementation and actions of the climate change this time rather than having the policy and the financing so far being discussed. So it is also very important that we talk of coming to address this, we have understood the ecosystem, because if we have to provide the ecosystem service, first and foremost, we need to create an ecosystem at local level so that we can deliver what they require, making sure the resource is not depleted. Water efficiency, you also mentioned, remains the key. If we handle this problem, I think we will manage the problem of India's water going forward for next several decades. And that relies largely in the kind of agriculture, right? Agriculture as a department is a big elephant in the room, but when it comes to the efficiency, we still haven't got that how to manage, because our efficiency is very poor and we don't need to explain more about it. Just maybe the last bit to mention, groundwater is key for SDGs in terms of having to have a clean water, for the clean drinking water. The groundwater is heavily utilized. 70% of the withdrawal which takes place in the country, 89% of that is being utilized for agriculture. So that itself speaks where the water goes. So we have to make sure that works, and therefore, even Honorable Minister mentioned about the Atal Bhujal Yojana is trying to move the needle and shift from supply side and the augmentation of resources to a demand side management, because you can't have the same practices. And that brings the discussion of the behavioral change. The last point just to mention, I think very well said, I will here quote the former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. He said, every single policy has to be bent at their knees for the water survival. And if really so, that is required. And I'm sure one day that has to happen if we have to see and secure the water secure world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very well said. Water is climate, climate is water. I think, and we are sort of seeing this manifest in different ways all around the world, whether it is water-related extreme events or just availability of water. So this really is, or the interconnectedness of water with other impacts of climate change. I'm sure we will have some time at the end for discussion on some of these issues, and we can go back to our panelists with some questions. But for now, let me turn to I was thinking maybe I'll go to Mr. Ratnesh Jha, because there was some discussion on the role of business and industry. I mean, there's a lot of discussion that has happened on governments, communities. How do we bring in the business sector into this conversation? At one point, I remember there used to be a lot of discussion about privatizing basic services, including water supply and public-private partnership models. But a lot of it hasn't worked out. So to Mr. Jha, my question would be, how do we see the business community getting more involved with, of course, a profit sense, but also the larger development agenda in mind? Over to you, sir.
Thank you. First of all, before starting, I must thank the organizers. It was a wonderful assembly of people, friends of water, as one of the speakers said it. So the minister, who's trying to bring whole of government approach right from the grassroots to the top level of policy making and implementation. Such technical eminent experts who have devoted their lifetime thinking and working and mobilizing people. And one of the speakers before me, panelists before me, said that there's a science and there's a policy and there's a politics. So very, very aptly put. And as Divya has also requested me to focus on what businesses are doing and what is the role of UNGC in organizing these businesses around these very critical issues. So I'm Ratnesh, I represent the UN Global Compact India Network, and we have currently 3 parallel initiatives going on, one at the global level and 2 at the country level, and they are trying to address in a very small but critical way the gaps that we are feeling, because industry is one of the biggest users of water, and also it benefits as well as what are the give backs, what are the benchmarks of how they replenish the water that they use. So all those issues, ethical issues are there, environmental issues are there, scientific issues are there, business considerations are there, and now with ESG reporting standards, things are becoming more and more transparent and objective, and it is our endeavor. So I would just talk about the 3 initiatives which we are taking, because all the issues have already been discussed on why we need to do what we are doing and how we need to come together. So one of the most successful initiatives on a multi-stakeholder basis on SDG-6 is our UN Global Compact CEO Water Mandate and the Water Resilience Coalition. These are industry-driven and CEO-led, and they aim to elevate global water stress to the top of the agenda, not only provide frameworks for measurement of water use, identifying water risk within an organization, but also how can we preserve the resources through collective action in water-stressed basins and ambitious, quantifiable commitments. And we have the who's who of the corporate world: Bayer, Calvin Klein, Diageo, Coca-Cola, Dow, Starbucks, Gap, GSK, and so on and so forth. From India, we have Infosys, Hindustan Zinc, NTPC, Mahindra, Adani, Pepsi India, and Microsoft India. So all of them are coming together on this platform, which looks at the problem, tries to identify the solutions and work on it. The second initiative I would like to highlight here is our multi-stakeholder partnership, where we are implementing the water and wash work stream. Here, we have promoted it at the country level, 6-month pilot to prepare a national level framework which can guide Indian companies on what are the priority challenge areas and where should long-term investments to achieve water security and access to wash go. We are supported by Ministry of Jal Shakti. The Honorable Minister was here. And we have 6 partners as of now, which include corporate members like Dr. Reddy's, Mindtree, Accenture, Vedanta, and NCML and SM Sehgal Foundation are our knowledge partners. This pilot will garner support from corporates for long-term interventions, and we would be contributing to ground-level action because this has been designated as Decade of Action by the UN. And the third is smart water management solutions to monitor conditions and detect anomalies across water abstraction and consumption, such as drop in the pipeline pressure due to a leak or the detection of contaminants on a bacteria in the water. So all these issues on a real-time basis, if it can, so we have the technology, it's just broad-basing and making it available. So these are the 3 key initiatives that UN Global Compact at the global level and the national level is currently working on. And as my speakers before me have emphasized, that if we work on SDG-6, it will help us reach closer to all other SDGs. So with that belief and with that re-emphasizing the need to work together, I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to now turn to Patricia Mages. There's been a lot of discussion since morning on the importance of the agriculture sector in this whole discourse. It's the elephant in the room. And anything else that we do, if we don't address agriculture, you're just sort of, tinkering on the boundary and not really addressing the big problem. So Patricia, will bring that perspective of agriculture into the discussion. She's the coordinator of FAO's Global Information System on Water and Agriculture that collects, analyzes, and disseminates statistics and information on the state and trends of water resources in the world, including the monitoring of SDG 6.4 target indicators. Patricia has worked at the FAO since 2003 and has over 20 years of experience on issues related to water resources management, in the entire spectrum, and has also worked across continents. So I'm sure, Patricia, you'll be able to reflect on some of these issues that were being discussed, particularly with respect to agriculture sector, how do you balance multiple interests? You know, in India, for instance, we see this constant sort of, you know, I don't want to say war, but this constant debate between getting pricing right versus getting the interests of farmers in, you know, sort of assuring that the interests of farmers, especially the marginal farmers, are taken care of. So I think some of these processes and you know, issues, while we do talk about multi-stakeholder processes at the global level, but when we get down to ground to addressing some of these solutions, these are very real challenges that we face. So if you can reflect a little bit on some of these issues and how you've been able to, or what has your experience been and observations from other parts of the world as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And let me first thank you for inviting FAO to this policy dialogue. Well, SDG-6 is at the core of FAO's work. As you say, the agricultural sector is an important sector when we talk about water. Is by large the major user of water resources. So it's important that agriculture and agricultural stakeholders such as farmers or water user associations are involved and have a voice in partnerships related to the achievement of SDG-6. I think in our work of FAO, we have seen that the Agenda 2030 has created, let's say, an enabling environment at country level. So now there is more willingness from the different sectors and partners to talk and to share information and to cooperate, because they recognize the interlinkages between the different targets and indicators of SDG-6. We have seen at national level that many countries have established platforms and institutional mechanism to make these partnerships work. For instance, I don't know, in many countries now there are interinstitutional commissions for water resources. Some countries are now, I mean, like this example of India, I know that they are now organizing national water forums or dialogues, so to bring together all partners, including the agriculture sector in the discussion. I would like also to focus on an important issue that was presented in the earlier presentation, which is the need of data and a monitoring framework, right? This is important for the governments to be accountable, and also for the partnerships to be efficient. Information and data are the entry point for any action to improve the water use efficiency. That gives stronger accountability to the government, but also to other partners. Data information is also important to attract investment and commitment. And also, we should not forget that the Agenda 2030 calls for leaving no one behind. So good data and disaggregated data are needed for targeting vulnerable populations. In terms of FAO work, we are custodian agencies of SDG-6 core indicators, which deal with the water efficiency and the level of water stress. And to monitor these indicators, we need the cooperation of different institutions to collect data. At FAO, we have a national focal point at country level, and the national focal point is responsible of collecting data from different institutions, agricultural ministries, environment, water, and sometimes also at local level for disaggregated data. We have seen that there are still a lot of data gaps that needs to be covered. Sometimes these data gaps are the consequences of lack of coordination and cooperation among different institutions. And in order to guarantee the participation of the different institutions, I think the governments have also to undertake data gap assessments and see who is responsible for what and how data and information can be shared in a better way. And then another point I think it's important for cooperation and partnership for the achievement of SDG-6 is the inclusiveness. Even if I say that now at national levels there is more willingness for the different sectors and different stakeholders to cooperate, there is still a challenge to involve vulnerable and marginalized populations, and that is really a barrier for SDG-6 targets to be accomplished. So this is why it's really very important to have and to think on with more a gender perspective. Women has been recognized as being one important actor for water management and for increasing the efficiency in water resources, but still they lack representation and decision-making power in many of the forums. So I think it's important also when at national level partnerships and cooperation frameworks are established to consider and to make an extra effort to include women and other marginalized populations in the dialogue. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm going to now turn to Mr. MP Singh, who's the Chief of Development Operations with JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. Japan is one of India's most important development partners in a range of infrastructure areas, including the metro and I suppose also related to water and sanitation infrastructure. So over to Mr. Singh on what has his experience been on stakeholder engagement processes while implementing these projects in India.
Thank you very much. I think I'm really thankful to the India Water Foundation, UNEP and UNESCO to give us this opportunity. And basically, I am going to present the donor's perspective in achieving these goals. Very rightly, the Honorable Minister this morning said that unless there is multi-stakeholders cooperation and sharing of the knowledge, the achieving of these objectives or achieving of these goals, it would be very, very difficult. And he has already shown the way that how this open defecation free, that goal, it could be achieved within the shortest possible time because all the governments and all the stakeholders were taken on the board. So from the donor perspective, I just would like to share about the Japan International Cooperation Agency, which is the financial institution of the government of Japan. And basically, we are the largest donor to the government of India. And we are actively assisting for the economic growth, infrastructure creation, poverty reduction, and environment conservation. So if you really see, it covers major of these goals. We have we are assisting the government of India through the loans, technical cooperations, and the grant assistance. And we have been instrumental to facilitate development of infrastructure, including the transport, water resources, energy, forestry, agriculture, health, education, among others. And basically, as I mentioned, that we basically extend our assistance through these ODA loans, technical cooperation, and the grants. The government of Japan started its cooperation with government of India from 1958, and since then, I think more than 303 major projects. So when I say majors, that includes the kind of the bullet train projects also, which is approximately 1 lakh crore or so. With that, the water in the water supply sector, basically JICA has assisted water supply, sewerage, and also the river conservation projects, which are more than 30. Say these are 37 projects, which have been assisted, and this is the largest number funded by any of the international donor. Yes, and then what we have achieved, that I would like to just mention, that basically we are focusing on a priority to benefit the masses. And why I am sharing is that basically what we have achieved, if these are not properly shared, probably every partner or every stakeholder, they will go in the different way. And if some kind of the example is there, then I am sure this will certainly help the others also. So priority to benefit to the masses, projects are implemented in major cities such as Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Agra, Varanasi, Jaipur, Pune, Nagpur, for improving the water and sewerage infrastructure with advanced technologies such as MBVR, desalination water plant, and ozonation and other systems. Other than that, we have also tried to tackle the problems of the fluoride and arsenic, especially in Rajasthan and in West Bengal. Then another focus area, which is very being advocated, is the capacity development of the local government and also the effective operation and maintenance of the systems which were being created. So B supports the capacity development of the officials who are in charge of these water supply and sewerage sectors. Then other than this, we have also worked a lot for the last 20 years in the rejuvenation of the rivers, which includes the Ganga, Yamuna, and other rivers also. Then other than these, we always go for the inclusive development, and JICA supports the social development activities such as construction of community toilet complexes, dhobi ghats, bathing ghats, crematoria, reflecting the voices of the community and promoting the social awareness. Now, very briefly, I will just touch that. What are the notable things which we have done, but basically these could be useful to the other stakeholders also. That when we implement our projects, normally we always believe in bringing the new technologies which are suiting to the local conditions. And these has been found very effective, like MBBR process in Agra, and also the modified activated sludge processes. Similarly, the selection of the quality equipment also is one of our criteria, and we have seen that these are normally very operation and maintenance effective systems which we normally provide. And then the new techniques also sometimes we provide, like we have provided sometimes the silent pillars, which are very, very, I think, new to our country for providing the seat piles protection and other things. And these are basically technology which is taken from Japan. Then another thing which we created, the creation of the VATCO in Orissa state. I think this is really the new model which is being developed, and this is the very, very helpful in effective operation and maintenance of the facilities. And in this, we have worked together with the government and the agencies very much. And it is found to be very, very effective also. And another important thing, that while we are taking the infrastructure creation, normally we are very much sure of making the procedures which makes the expeditious payment to the contact implementing agencies and others, and also the decisions on the committee-based approach. These really helps while taking the good decisions. And top of everything is that we are aligning our implementation procedures or the methods in line with the Government of India initiatives. For example, the Government of India has this, this morning the Minister was saying this, Har Ghar Jal. And for that, we are basically utilizing the self-help groups, women self-help groups, who are basically trained, well trained. Then also the technicians, they are trained and they are employed on the projects, and basically they also help in mobilizing the public for the taking the house sewer or house water connections and revenue recovery also. And this system is found to be very, very useful. So other than this, we also normally promote the SCADA systems, GIS, MapIS, so that the asset management is done properly. These were the kind of the perspective from the donor side, and we expect that certainly no donor can take care of all the requirement, but certainly the kind of creating these kind of the quoting examples, I think that things could be more easy in achieving these goals. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I have been asked by the organizers to try and wind up in the next 5 odd minutes. If there are any questions from the audience or from the panelists to each other, since...
I'll invite one more speaker and then you can wind up.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Yeah, Dr. Veena Khanduri, she would present the perspective of global water partnership on what the SDG progress is in India and how they are implementing multi-stakeholder partnerships. Thank you so much, India Water Foundation, UNESCO, World Water Council, UN Environment Program, and so many multi-stakeholders who have joined this program today. It's indeed a pleasure that SDG-6 discussion has been taken at this platform. And I really wanted to talk to you in person that I have gone through for this SDG-6 personally from the perspective of reporting. I will tell you, we have been, I'm representing here as Country Water Partnership of Global Water Partnership, India Water Partnership. So GWP and UN Environment Program through UNDHI have approached the Country Water Partnership for accelerating the data for SDG 6.5.1. And I think we have touched based on so many related ministries to facilitate this discussion, that how they are reporting on the data and what are the preparations going on, who are the stakeholders whom they have covered. And let me share this. In 2020, there was no discussion started. And in 2019, when the first report was there was no data reporting on the India side. So we approached NITI Aayog, Ministry of Statistics and Implementation, Central Water Commission, different water divisions of India. And there was no coherence and no clarity about the reporting of data for SDG 6. So this, I think the morning discussion about the taking the partnership and taking the multi-stakeholders and multidisciplinary approach for SDG 6 is very, very important. We are talking about the challenges. And what I feel is, first of all, we need an open and transparent dialogue, which talk about the evidence-based knowledge and which talked about the building the consensus of a range of critical water development issues for taking up the agenda of SDG 6. Until unless we are clear about the open discussion, we cannot move forward. In case of national priorities or international priorities, just Satya have just pointed out that we are requiring collaborative partners, ministries, academic research institution, private sector, business partners, financing partners, donors, civil society, community-based organization, and they are holding different expectations. And they have different style due to their own agenda
their own cultural settings and behaviors. So when we are talking about a common agenda, we need multi-stakeholder collaborations, but it is often complex by nature, and therefore it is not easy to see and understand that what other partners are doing and how they are projecting the work. And I think for this, we need a strong multi-sectoral partnership, because if we are talking about a water agenda, in the morning discussion, our honorable minister have pointed out that this is a multi-sectoral approach. Water is needing now multi-sectoral approach, and we have to take the different departments into the account. The perspective which I'm just sharing is the organization which I representing here is a Global Water Partnership. And this organization supports, advocate, and help to strengthen and provide enabling environment. I think for any partnership, we required a enabling environment, and GWP is providing enabling environment, and which is also encouraging and supporting the participation of all stakeholders for local to national levels to achieve efficient, equitable, and sustainable water management. If I talk about the country water partnership, I will give you the one example that across the South Asia, all country water partnerships are helping and facilitating the respective country water partnership for accelerating the SDG-6, mainly 6.5.1 for data collection. So that is the role which we are playing, and I will stop myself here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I had to cut you short.
Sufficient.
Any burning, pressing questions? I know we've run out of time pretty much. If there are any questions from the audience? And I don't know if our speakers who joined us virtually are still with us. Are they still there? The speakers who joined virtually?
Yes, they must.
Okay. So I'm going to just, throw one question because I know we've run out of time. But in all this discussion, I didn't hear much about valuing water. We're talking about access. Often that is synonymous with subsidies. And we've seen that, the pricing of electricity in Delhi had shown that even with subsidies, it is possible to do it in a way that improves the overall efficiency of the system. It increases consumption where it is below the minimal levels, and also actually increased revenue of the utility. So I just wanted to sort of get reflections from any of the panelists on the whole issue of valuing water right, and how do you balance the issue of valuation with access, with efficiency, with protecting the interests of marginal farmers, say. So any thoughts and perspectives, especially if you can talk about it in terms of things that have worked in other parts of the world, I think that'll be very useful. I see Mr. Tripathi raising his hand. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just to cite a few examples, there's this concept of revenue water, like the water that gets processed and filtered and cleaned and sent off for people to consume. If you take the case of Singapore, revenue water is 95%. So for every 100 liters of water that gets processed, 95 liters is paid for. If you look at the developing countries, predominantly even the best ones get to 50-60% of revenue water. So that's a big challenge, So if you're not getting paid for the services that you're actually producing and providing, then that cuts down the water use efficiency because people are not paying for the water that is already processed and provided. The second thing is that in terms of, and especially this is in the context of the corporate world, and when we, let's say as policymakers make these decisions, let's say you're giving a bottling plant or a bottling water or beverages or whatever it is, a license to operate in a certain area. So they come up with these great tools to say, oh, we are using it super efficiently, we're not wasting any water, and everything is good. while that is certainly a desirable thing to look for while making a policy decision, it is also equally important to look at what is the water supply situation in that area? What is the water stress? If people in that particular area are traveling 30 kilometers to fetch a pot of water, is it wise to provide a license to a bottling plant, even if it is giving employment to 100, 200 people or adding a bit to the economy? So, so looking at the whole stakeholder situation while making these decisions, I think is extremely important. And also the use of certain tools. This has been done in many countries. Normally what happens is that the pumping efficiency of water, supplied water, remains more or less the same. You're pumping at the same pressure. But if you did a little study as to what is the water use situation, let's say in X or Y or Z city, then if you know that at a certain point of time there are not many people drawing water, then you can actually reduce the pressure of the pumps, thereby save on a lot of electricity. And it has been tried in Indonesia and other countries very successfully, actually. So it also reduces the carbon footprint of water and also the cost to the government of producing, because it's a public utility, it's a public good. So I thought I'll share these three examples from different parts of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Tripathi. That's extremely insightful. Any of the other panelists might want to reflect on this issue?
Thank you. I'll say something very brief. When we consider the value of water, of course, there are many different values of water, whether it's economic value or production value or ecosystem values, cultural values, and for some, moral and ethical values associated with water. and that's particularly, those different perspectives become particularly important if we're talking about how to use values for water in multi-stakeholder processes and in using multi-stakeholder platforms to move us towards more consensus-based decisions and plans. Because those different stakeholders will have different views on which values should be seen as most important. So when we talk about valuing water, I think that has to go hand in hand with making sure that we have the effective multi-stakeholder processes in which there can be negotiation around how to accommodate the multiple perceptions of value that are at play.
That's a very interesting perspective, and it would be interesting to see how this, for instance, can be applied to a region like Punjab in India, which is partly because of the subsidies on water and on electricity for pumping out water, has now a very perverse sort of a cropping pattern that has that is, I mean, let me just say that it's not in sync with the natural resource endowments of the region. And it would be useful to see how these, what are the kinds of values of water that will appeal to the farmers there, which will make them more amenable to a change in the policy regime and get over the whole, entrenched interests that have sort of, been there for many years. I think we've had some very good discussions, and I'm not going to try and sum up because, we've just touched so many aspects. Let me only thank all the panelists, those who are here in person as well as those who've joined virtually, for sparing the time and for sharing their insights on this very, very useful, very, very important and priority issue for all of us, especially in developing countries. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Well, the panel discussion went really fruitful. Now I'd like to request Chief Functioning India Water Foundation, Ms. Shweta Tyagi, to present the mementos to the respective speakers.
I thank all the guests and invite them for high tea in the fine dining area behind the Seasons restaurant. Thank you so much.